Why, hello there, ladies, gentlemen, and friends from beyond the binary. We are joined today by none other than this incredibly handsome man on the left-hand side. It's none other than the Jesse Cox, aka, and maybe better known as, Little JC. Hello, Jesse.
That's so, you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it. I feel like once I've departed this world, if only the legend of Little JC will live on, I'll be a happy person, honestly.
The legend permeates the 14 community more than you possibly could imagine. But yeah, how are you today? You feeling good? You feeling ready for some FF14 chat? Because I'm not sure about yourself. I am yet to really chat to anyone one-on-one about the expansion and what awaits us.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I've had a lot of stuff in my head for a lot of days, and I keep trying to like get it out and put it on paper. And every time I'm like, that's not what I did. I want to say, you know what? I could add this. I could, and there's just a lot. And yeah, it's one of those times where the community has a lot of thoughts about things, I guess.
It's putting it lightly, yeah, for sure. Well, to begin with, much like you, I came from Warcraft, and it was around BFA where I think I mentally checked out, and then I made my way into Shadowlands just to back up the guild. They needed a couple extra people to, you know, keep the raid team going, and
sure,
I just thought, I've had enough. I'm finally gonna go cold turkey after playing since 2005, and at the time, a lot of people had recommended me your video, and you know, your comparison between 14 and WoW, and I never ended up watching it, no offense, because I thought I'll let my own decision making, you know, lead me to whether or not I like the game or not. I am so sorry. I know, how offensive. But no, but
I made it for you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. No, I wanted to ask you, what was the moment in the journey where you were like, okay, this game's for me? Because I think there's so many moments in A Realm Reborn which are, they're getting there, but it wasn't until Heavensward where I fully gave myself to 14 and let go of like any inhibitions that I may have had up until that point in the story.
Well, so it was height of COVID. We're talking 2020, middle of 20, like summer 2020 maybe. Yeah. And everything had stopped. I was maybe a few weeks before everything shut down. I was about to head off to the UK to do a show, and it was like, oh, like, okay, so like, I was just bummed out. It was a total bummer, and I was coming off of playing. Oh God. I want to say, I keep in my brain. It's like Battle for Azeroth, but I know that's not what it was. It was the other one, the one that sucked, that I've genuinely blocked out of my brain.
It's got to be Shadowlands, right?
It is Shadowlands.
It's
it's removed. I took it out. Yeah. I'll never think of that again. It's gone.
I think we all did.
Gone. Yeah. And so I had played that, and I absolutely hated it. Just because I think across the board it was like, what the hell is this expansion? What are they doing? So I was kind of looking for something to do. I was, I've been a Guild Wars 2 on and off player for a while, but there was nothing to do in that right then. So I was like, yeah, I don't know. And then one of my friends was like, hey, let's go play Final Fantasy 14. I was like, I don't know, dude. I played that way back in the day. Like that, I got really bored. That was kind of boring. And they were like, hey, come on, let's give it a shot. So I was like, fine. You know what? I have a level 40 character from literally launch way back when, so I'll just play that, and we'll see what happens. And so I remember, again, I don't remember when I started, how I started. It would have been 2010, 12-ish, whenever the hell original 14.
About that, yeah.
And I was like level 41 when I loaded up my character again. I was in the middle of Kurthus. I had no clue what was going on. And I think I still had to go beat Garuda. And I was like, oh, okay.
do you remember what job you played?
At the time it was a Black Mage. Which is probably why I hated it, because I think Black Mage is boring. And since I've learned, there's so many better. Anyway, I'm going to get Black Mages be like, actually, my class is quite good.
I think I can hear them in the background, but we'll ignore them.
And I was like, oh, man, this is boring. But I kept playing as a black mage for a little bit, and when I guess I would say maybe towards the end of 255 into Heaven's Ward, probably like everyone else, I was like, oh, they're doing something here. And so there was a story that I was kind of invested in. And I think once you get me invested in your story, I'm in for life.
Yeah.
Until you abuse that. Wow. And at some point someone was like, stop playing a black mage, play a red mage. And I was like, okay. And then I just fell in love with it. I was like,
That's a revelation I've only just come to about a month ago when I finally gave it a go and thought, I've been wasting my time. Why have I not been playing Red Mage sooner?
Red Mage is great.
It is phenomenal. On the topic of getting to the end of A Realm Reborn and seeing, wow, the road goes on. Because in the pre-show chat, we were talking about WoW and how they nailed zone stories, but the interconnectivity is sorely lacking. And I think I had that revelation too, where we get to the end of A Realm Reborn and the Scions are still there. And it's like, oh, interesting. And then we get to the end of Heavensward, they're still around. I loved that. And I think that's properly where I got on board with the game, at the revelation that I'm experiencing an epic story as opposed to a little contained slice, which will inevitably not mean anything. And I mean, that's where something which I think my chat know me for, and I think has sort of permeated out into the 14 community, is I made corkboards like Charlie Day, you know, the meme with him and the one in the background. And I went hog wild on it. I thought, well, I'll make that my shtick. And it was ever since we had that little moment with Urian J and I believe Elidibus, where they were consulting with each other, I thought, he's playing us for a fool here. And then I suddenly realized, I am fully interested and ingrained in the story at this point. And it's ever since then, it has been an unforgettable journey up until, of course, you know, the peak of Endwalker and beating the game. And when I got to that point in the game, I was looking forward to finally being able to watch other people play through, because up until that point, I'd been in a bubble. And at the time, people said, well, you know, Jesse is a vampire now. And I said, oh, I'm fully aware. Because I'd seen you over in the Grinding Gear channel. And I thought, that won't be me. That won't be me. Anyway, I beat Endwalker. By that evening, I was in YouTube. People beating 5.0, 5.3, 6.0, and it is glorious. Just being able to relive the journey, because we will never get that again. So being able to live vicariously through all of these intrepid sprouts who have no idea what's coming for him is bliss. And I think you said it. Go on, you go.
Oh, no. What did I say? Please enlighten me. How did I say it best? What was it?
You said it best when we were watching Garrett and Kyle, and you were like, they're not going to cry, but I hope they do. You know, two macho men in the same room as one another. And I, like you, was glued to my screen like, come on, boys, give me something. And then when they buckled, I buckled too, admittedly.
Oh,
but
it was
it's so sweet.
Glorious.
It was.
Watching them break one after another was the best thing I've ever seen in my time. I was like, yes!
I
feel
love
your
the domino
emotions for me.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. And I don't know, for me, it's a bit of that, and then the intrigue of the game as a whole. The fact that we all have a very different reaction. Like, they cried at different parts to me. I think early on in my play, I'm not much of a crier. I'm not sure about yourself, but when it comes to media, it takes a lot to really get me. And I think where I really got strung up was the revelation that we were Azem, which I know is a character and something we'll talk about later that I know you're very fascinated with, as am I. But the revelation of that, I just buckled internally. The idea that we finally knew our place in the world, because up until that point, we're just the warrior of light, and there's not a lot we can really go on off of that. But then to find out that we are a reincarnation, as it were, of Azem, blew me out of the water. And I wasn't sure if there was a moment for you where you had a very similar reaction.
Do you want like an honest one or an equal to Azem Revelation? Because here's the thing.
An honest one. Give me an honest one.
I'll give you both. I'll take it. I've genuine. So throughout the game, there's been moments that have got me. One of the ones that got me was just like an interaction with another. So there is a player who constantly, I don't want to say stalking, but gently creates a secondary narrative every time I play through.
Right.
Where it's a cat girl who, like, every time I go around the zones, does a bit. So, for example, for Dawntrail, the bit was every zone giving me a new painting. And I thought it was very, and then at the end there was like a big payoff and it was very cute. And in the original arc, it was starting as like an Imperial soldier and then slowly working through. And every time we'd meet, we'd do a dance off, right? And it was very sweet. And for some reason, I get to Ultima Thule and they're there and it like made me cry. I don't know what it was. Just like the journey, I guess, got me.
Yeah.
But with that said, most Jesse crying is like silently sitting here, my eyes watering, not making a noise, but just like, these sons of bitches. Just like, it's very like, dude watches war movie and he's like, they were so brave. Like, it's that vibe is where I'm at.
I got you.
But,
wait, so hold on. When you got to Ultima Thule, was it just that cat girl waiting for you, or were there other people?
I mean, there were other people, but it was like, for some reason, right in one spot that like got me.
Yeah,
the thing that really got me though, and it like I don't know, this is kind of the Azem thing. Early in the expansion, I was like, they keep hyping up Estinian riding a dragon, and we meet a dragon, and I was like, I just want to ride a dragon. At the end, we got to ride a dragon. Find that footage. I don't know any man has ever cried because a dude, he's like, I got to ride my dragon. I was emotional because that happened. And I was like, I can't believe that's what got me. Of all the things, that got me.
I totally understand, because I've got a fascination, a love for Estinian, and I was excited at the possibility that maybe we could one day ride a dragon after having seen him ride Vreetra in the cinematic. My reaction to that was, I think, less crying and more just a shrill cry of joy that didn't end. And then obviously we go into Endsinger and we're still on Xenos in that moment. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
I think the biggest thing about that though is it's less about the dragon and more about, like, I went in to the expansion. I did that for Dawntrail too, where I was like, here's what's going to happen. Here's my theories. Here's my thoughts. And Dawntrail, I have like a whole thing. I was like, this is what, because I was going off. Remember how Battle for Azeroth was like, it's the Alliance versus the Horde. And I was like, nah, it's the battle for the soul of Azeroth, right? And so for Dawntrail, I was like, nah. There's something else going on. And so as it revealed, I was like, I got so excited. I like was huffing my own copium the entire time, like, this is what's gonna be. And then like by the end I was like, yes. And so that's where if I have payoffs, I'll get emotional. I'd be like, they did it. They did the thing that 100%. I wanted, and it happened, and now I'm happy. Yeah.
Do you remember when you first made the connection that Dawntrail may be us following in the footsteps of Azem? Do you remember when?
At least 3 years ago. I don't.
Wow.
It might have been before that, because we found a podcast I was on in 2021 where I was like, guys, here's what Dawntrail's about. And I literally just like, we're gonna do this whole thing. And clearly I was wrong about like what it was about, but like the underlying note.
Yeah, I got you.
Like, okay, right on.
Be onto something.
And so, but it's been at least 3 years. So I'm like, okay, maybe we'll see what happens. I'm not saying that they should have just listened to me and hired me for some sort of Indiana Jones-esque quest, but I'm hoping that's what the next expansion is.
I mean, I think I speak on behalf of everybody when I say that would be amazing. We should definitely try and get like a petition going. I think I said something very similar, but very offhanded and not at all genuine when I said, what, Dawn? Azem? And then I discarded the idea completely. So unlike you, where you were playing through the expansion with that in your mind, I'd relinquished it and thought, we're not on a summer vacation. I think we all kind of knew that wasn't going to be what was going down.
Sure.
But I by the time we got to the end and the hourglass relic appears and the beautiful Azem symbol appears on top, I nearly fell out of my chair. And I have been sent your clip of your reaction. And man, I felt that in my soul.
It's curious because I feel like a lot of people are, I don't know what you would call it. They're suffering from like story delusion or story, like, I don't know, traumatic something or other, where they can't believe, right? Like I see a lot of people who were like, no, that symbol on top, that was because of your crystal. It caused that. It's reactionary. I was like, was it? Or when they're like, no, it's not a different reflection. It was actually the one that was destroyed by lightning, and they're like, it's just a pattern. Like, are you sure about that? And so now we're getting Yoshida interviews, and I'm like,
yeah,
good Yoshida. Tell them that people, they were wrong.
Yeah,
that we might move on from this shenaniganry. Yeah.
I think for me, when I look at 14 and the future of what may await us in the MSQ, I'd been so heavily focused on the reflections and what we might find there, especially after Emmett gives you that speech at the end of Endwalker where he mentions, some of the civilizations upon the reflections will surprise you. And I never in a million years thought that would connect to Dawntrail. Not in the slightest. But that is my big picture. Were you on that?
That man literally was like, before I go, let me spoil some shit, bitches. I was like, again, that's also another, this is hilarious. If you go find the footage of me, that also made me cry because I was like, he's telling me the things I'm gonna do and I just love it. I don't know why that got me, but I was like, we're gonna go to those islands and we're gonna see that thing and we're gonna go to the... And so, I was just happy that they were spelling it out. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But,
so just in case you guys are thinking about unsubscribing, here is the menu for the next 10 years. Would you like to take a look?
Absolutely, that's what they did.
I'll take a look. Yeah, give it to me. For me, the one that got me there was Meridian. Ever since the Heavensward expansion, where we begin learning more about the dragons, all I'd wanted was to go there and see what, lied in the wake of what Alag did back there thousands of years ago. And every expansion, I'm like, here we go, Meridian time. Doesn't happen. So to have Emma at the very end say, well, what of Meridian and its current situation? I'm thinking, yes, feed it to me, Yoshida. Give it to me in my veins. But the thing is, Azem obviously isn't mentioned in that monologue, but Azem is such a prominent part of the finale of Shadowbringers and basically the entirety of Endwalker that I think he kind of slipped under the radar for me, where I wasn't thinking, Azem will be prominent in the imminent future of the MSQ, but at the end of Dawntrail, I think it's going to go hand in hand with the reflections and Azem and whatever awaits us in the future.
Yeah, it seemed like so in my mind, if you want to know like where I was when I was thinking about the idea of
give it
sort of like reflecting on yourself. So we're down to only 4 viable reflections. Sure, there's the Void and there's the First, but they're kind of a mess, and we've been there, right? So we've got 4 of the reflections, and that's kind of like, okay, what are we gonna do with those? Plus we have the New World, plus we have Meridian, right? We have the places we haven't explored, and then any place they think up that's like, it's an underwater volcano island and it was secret, like whatever,
Yeah.
But in my mind, I'm like, okay, Ascians are done. The story's done. 13 of the 14 we have discussed and dealt with, and we probably aren't ever going back. But we have this other figure who they keep bringing up that they never really talk about, and it's you, and it's a character who goes around and travels and explores and is like, man, lady of the people. And I was like, so like we have to, in theory, go on some sort of like who are we adventure, because we have up until this point been like in A Realm Reborn, we're caught up in machinations, right?
Yes.
We're just along for the ride.
Yeah.
Heaven's Ward, we're just trying to survive. Stormblood, everyone's back, but a war broke out. And then Shadowbringers and Endwalker are literally just about your character. It's about like finding out who you are as a hero. Except it isn't really until then that you become a hero, right? Like you have been an adventurer who's just caught up in some stuff the entire time, and then you become a hero. And I firmly believe through the guide, like Ardbert's kind of like your mentor on the hero path of what it like means to be a hero. And so those 2 the expansions define what it is. And then hero over, you save the universe, and now what? Like what would you do? What would you create? And I was thinking like, well, you can't make another bigger bad immediately. That's insane. Like it has to be something that can last a long time, that will be a story that people want to know about.
Exactly. 100%. And I'll quickly say, that has been such a prominent part of so much discussion online, where I think people assumed that we were going to somehow take the ante up. And I just feel silly for reading these comments, because I don't understand how people can think that way. How can we go one up immediately after? We have to go back to the beginning and start a new chapter. And I think that's hard for a lot of people to process, because they want a bigger bad immediately, when that is just unfathomable given what we've just done over the course of a 10-year arc. So I'm intrigued to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, I think I said it many times before, that the minute they were like, we're making an ending and we're putting a period at the end of the story, there's absolutely no way that everyone would be happy with what happened. And honestly, I mean, when Final Fantasy XI did that at the end of Chains of Promethea, I was like, oh, we're done and there's a new story? I'm going to go play WoW. And then I just went and started playing WoW, because it was better in my mind than Final Fantasy XI.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, this is an easy out. And I just went and played something completely different. And I never went back and never played Ot or Gan or whatever the hell the extra expansions were. It just didn't happen. And so I was like, okay, I'll move on and do that. But the problem with WoW is they did the exact opposite, which was every expansion is a bigger bad that's going to get more worse every time. And for the first couple expansions, it made sense, right? Because we had the backstory of Warcraft 3, and so you have, you can go and fight Illidan or Arthas or, the weird void creatures that they created, right? And then in the original Warcraft, they added like Titan mechanics, and they had like, you find like weird discs and be like, oh, cool, this is awesome, what's this gonna be? And there was a bunch of things they added onto it, but then over time, it became one of those things where it's like, okay, you killed the old gods, but there's actually something. Oh, no, it looks like the Burning Legion's back. Well, you murdered the entire Burning Legion. What's worse than that? Old gods are back. Like, weren't they? Didn't we kill them? No, they're like worse though. There's an even worse one. It's like, oh, okay.
There's another.
And then it's like, and then it's like, actually, the old god's not even the bad guy. Real bad guy, the jailer. And you're like, okay, I don't even know this dude. Like, but he knows you. And it's like, okay, because he's planned everything from the beginning. And you're like, did he? Did he? And you're like, okay. Then you kill him. And the last thing he says is like, there's something even worse. And you're like, brother, what?
I know.
Oh, man. It's the Dragon Ball Z problem where, and I talk about this in the video that I'm working on, there's only 3 things you can do. And there might be more, but I've condensed it to 3. 1, you either reset everyone's level to 1 again, and you say, look, you saved the world, you did everything, but something happens and you reset your power. And WoW's done that before. After Legion, where you had your weapon, they depowered your cool weapon, and suddenly all those bonuses and buffs you got from having a cool weapon no longer exists, and it felt like kind of oh, we've lowered your power level. That's something you can do, and I think most people hate it. It sucks, even in in all storytelling, where it's like, I'm the strongest, and then suddenly you're not anymore, and you have to work your way back up. And I guess some people are like, well, I like the idea of you have to start over. You were a hero, but it's like when you play a video game and the first level, you're max level, and then you lose all your power, and then the rest of the game is like, I gotta become strong again.
I know that trope. Yeah.
Right. Or you do what WoW has consistently done, which is you are going to be the hero who's still the hero, and there's just gonna be something else that's more powerful. And it's gonna keep getting more powerful, and it doesn't matter how ridiculous it gets, which is interesting. I'm curious what they're gonna do, because even though they haven't said it's the end, Metzen definitely was like, hey, the next 3 Warcraft games are gonna be like the games that wrap up a lot of stories so your grandkids don't have to play it. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean though? Because in all the advertisements, they're like the beginning of a new era of Warcraft. I'm like, okay, that's not an end. They're being very smart about this. They're not saying they're going to end it. So I'm curious what that's going to lead to.
Yeah, same,
if anything, it makes me more interested.
100%. I'm with you on that. Because the idea, because I'd love to hear your full list of 3 things that you can do. But
sure.
At this point, and this is coming from someone who has played since 2005, I'd love to see them do a hard reset completely. But I don't want it. I don't want it to be my character. Let me begin anew in a new world. We could chat theories about where we think the story will go in WoW as well. But I'd love to see the World Soul Saga be their full stop in not just the sentence, but the novel. And I want them to then start a new chapter in a new book with whatever
I completely agree.
WoW 2 might be.
I hope, because they're hiring a bunch of people. I hope that's on the back burner. I hope they have like universe of Warcraft, or they do something different in the future, because WoW also just feels aged.
Definitely.
Like when you play it, it feels old a little bit. And some of the mechanics, especially the grindy mechanics, I'm like,
yeah.
But with that said, there's so many people that love it. They risk the Destiny 2 problem. And I will say Overwatch 2 problem, which is we had a thing, it was working just fine, and we tried to change it, and it's not as good.
Yeah.
And even though, like, you know, Destiny 2, for example, I don't know what they're doing over there. It's like, oh, you want to play, but you want to experience the story? Sorry.
Yeah.
We deleted all the story, and it's only new content. And you're like, what? What do you mean? And so it's like a bizarre way to do a game. I don't know. It's madness to me, but I think
where Blizzard may have preempted that is the existence of classic servers and the idea that they can somehow snapshot these moments in WoW's history, so that if you want to go back and play classic, you can do so. And let's say at the end of the World Soul Saga, they can then create like these evergreen servers for us to exist on and play within. They can do leagues, they can do whatever they want with that at that point, and get really, you know, big picture and funny with some of the experimentation they want to dabble in, which I'd love to see. Let me keep my character with all of my accomplishments, but I'm ready to put them away, put them in a box, put it on the shelf, and play with a new toy, whatever that might be, in their future.
Yeah, I mean, I generally have an issue with WoW Classic in that at a certain point, I think it stopped being classic. Like,
yes,
if they would have done WoW Classic through to Wrath of the Lich King, fine, we're great, we're good, mwah, love you.
Yeah.
But the minute you do Cataclysm, it's no longer, you've changed the world, and now it's no longer classic.
Yeah.
Like, it's a weird vibe. They're like, WoW Classic Cataclysm. I'm like, that's when everyone said the game changed.
Yeah.
So now you're like, you can't do that.
No, definitely.
And so, but if you keep it on one expansion, then it stagnates and the thing will die. So they have to keep adding new stuff, and like, okay, sure, whatever makes you happy. But it is a weird vibe to just be like, it's classic though. And it's like, no, I remember being there. It wasn't classic. People were pissed off the world changed. It's not classic.
I remember half my guild basically crumbled out at the beginning of Cataclysm for various reasons. But yeah, it's, I think the way I track time is how long it's been since XWoW expansion, and it continuously blows my mind. We're approaching 10 years since Legion, but I could have sworn I booted that up yesterday, but it's not. It was 10 years ago, whereas I think 10 years ago is me in Alterac Valley in vanilla WoW, backstabbing some mage, you know, outside of the Orc encampment. But it wasn't.
If you want to know true time dilation and how like just getting old feels, I have this weird thing sometimes where I'll go on react video watching, where I'll like watch people on YouTube react to anything from music videos to movies to whatever. It'll happen every so often. And one of the things I realized is at some point I realized I was watching a bunch of kids. And when I say kids, I mean like 20-year-olds. But I was watching a bunch of kids play or watch Lord of the Rings, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And I was like, oh, this is so much fun watching them watch this. And I realized, of course, because in my mind, I'm like, how have they never seen this before? Like they're reacting to this, they've never seen it. And I realized, oh, this kid's 20. The movies came out 23 years ago. And I was like, man. Oh, and then
my bones ache.
I'm just old now. Cool. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, no, to go back to what you were saying a minute ago about your 3 things you can do once you reach the climax of a story. I think we got through number 1. I'd love to hear what the other 2 are, if you don't mind sharing.
Sure. 1 is restart level 1.
Yep. 2
is you just keep building and it gets crazier and crazier, which is something that WoW has done, and I think they're attempting to stop doing. Because again, I like in World of Warcraft, I like that they're like, look, even though we're just pulling the knife from the Shadow Priest quest to be the villain, I'm like, fine, please keep doing that. I would prefer it if you kept doing like, it's someone you've met before, you have some stake in, rather than like, this is Gorgoth, the world ender. You don't really know this guy, but like, he's always been around, dude. So I'm fine with that. I know some people are complaining like the boss is the knife, and I'm like, that, you know what? I'm happy. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm the same as you.
And the last one, of course, is you do what I think a lot of TV shows do, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, which is if you have a hero who's like number 1, and again, I think all 3 of these are in Dragon Ball Z, which is why it's the Dragon Ball Z problem, and I love it, where you have a hero, strongest person ever. You know what? For a hot sec, we're going to take the focus away from that hero, and give them time to like not be up in your business for a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're going to meet someone else who's going to be the hero for a while. And yeah, your hero is going to be around, but the new hero is going to be the focus for a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's what they attempted to do with Dawntrail, except I'm not sure how well that works in a video game where you are the other hero.
Yeah.
I can understand why that's divisive in the community, because it's like, yeah, I have a whole like mental theory of what I think they were trying to do. I cannot explain to you exactly, but it's one of those things where I feel like they were like, okay, Wuklamot is going to be the you in a Realm Reborn, and you're going to be in the background kind of Ardbirding her through this entire story.
Yeah, I get that. I see where you're coming from. I think they did a soft launch of that, though, with the Zero quest line in the Endwalker patch quests. I don't know if you'd agree with that, because I feel like...
Oh, yeah, I think...
Go on.
No, I think you're absolutely correct. I think most of what 6.1 to 6.5 was very similar to when they make Manderville quest lines, where they're just like, we're testing things.
Yeah,
we're
100%.
We're testing stuff out.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because I went into the patch quests having never played Final Fantasy IV, so I didn't know who Golbez was or any of his lieutenants. Knew nothing. And by the end of the patch quests, when I got to the culmination of 6.5, I loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. One of my favorite patch quest cycles ever. And then I went online and saw fire. Just fire everywhere of people saying this is the worst story FF14's ever produced. I cannot believe it. They've clearly gone downhill. But much like what we've all now experienced with Dawntrail, you can't up the ante. We can't save the world and travel to the edge of the universe at the culmination of 6.0 and then expect the patch quests to be like, there was a bigger bird further away. Like, no, we can't do that. There's no room for that to happen. So being able to be the mentor in a way for Zero, not only in aiding her saving her own world, but to then also bring her to our world and show her the lessons we've learned, and to show her that, hey, look, friendship is power. Let's not beat around the bush. Friendship is power. And then to go on that adventure with her and to, defeat Golbez alongside her, and even to have her face off against him in his final moment. We're off dealing with Zeromus, while she is the one dealing with Golbez. And I loved it. And I liked being in the background. I've had my hero moment for 10 years. I don't need to go and defeat Golbez now. Sure, I'm dealing with Zeromus, who's their own big bad, but Golbez was the big evil of that particular patch quest. And knowing that I enjoyed that so much, I also really quite enjoyed Dawntrail. I liked being in the background. I know that's, for a lot of people, a tough pill to swallow, but like you've said, that's an amazing role for us to assume and be able to watch Wuklamot go on her journey like we did in A Realm Reborn. And there's so many parallels to A Realm Reborn dotted throughout the MSQ, which I feel like has to be like a, hey guys, do you see what's happening? But it may have gone over people's heads. It went over my head occasionally in the adventure. But at the end, I was ultimately very happy with that on paper. I feel like execution, it fumbled a little bit here and there, but overall, the idea of us being the mentor to Wuklamot and being able to aid her in her journey, I was on board for.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it was a revelation during playing or it was something that I just had mentally prepped for in a way. I genuinely don't know, but at some point I had the revelation, because I was still on this, like, it's going to be, oh man, we're going to get some sort of like, what's the story? Indiana Jones, as I'm going around doing the things. And I was like, hyped for that. So the entire time I'm looking for that to happen.
Yeah.
So I wasn't necessarily keyed into what was going on with the story and stuff about like Wuklamot doing
you watched the launch trailer, right? Did you watch the launch trailer beforehand?
Yeah. So automatically I was like, what is going on? What's happening here?
Yeah,
so I'm looking for clues. And that's why I think early on I picked up on some things that I was like, ooh, right? Which got me excited, but I was like in a different path. Like the main story is here and I'm over here like,
your brain's like this. Yeah, and I got you. I was the same. Yeah.
But the thing that I picked up at some point was that the Wuklamot story is one that is of a character who genuinely does not really know who we are. Like, we clearly have allied with Wuklamot and she is our new friend, and Erenvol's like, come on, I'm vouching for her. But really, we are a friend of a friend who was asked to come along on this adventure. So Weklamot, and not a damn soul in Tyrol, Tuliolol, any of those places actually knows who we are. So it is a vacation, not just from like being a hero, but being ourselves. Like we are straight up just, we're around, we're hanging out. And the moment I really picked up on that is after you do all the go around and meet all the different people and understand cultures and whatever, you come back and Weklamot and Kona are like, hey, we're going to run this place. You know what? We would love it if you were to be on our council, like have an office here and work with us. And the entire time I was like, they really don't know who I am. Yeah. They very clearly are like, come on, you can stay here and work for us. So I was like, the minute I had a free second, I ditched and went to Dinosaur, Texas with Aaronville. Yeah. Like literally, I was like, no. And that's who, like, as not just an Azem, but also as our character, we are constantly on the move. We're constantly exploring. And the fact that they don't understand that just goes to show, like, they don't know who we are in this part of the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I had this sort of connection with that, being like, okay, I am, for all intents and purposes, just like their friend who knows what's up, who's a good guy. And it does make you feel less like a hero. And I understand why players would be angry about that, because like you're not out there fighting the good fight and doing the thing. And I had to rewrite the script for the video I'm working on, because I realized, like, a flash, I was like, oh my God. Obviously, I don't know that it makes like the greatest video game to play your character at, but the entire last 10 years is the moral, the message, whatever it was, and eventually it's just flat out said by Grahatia multiple times. But it's like, a hero isn't the guy who goes around killing everyone. The hero is the one who inspires others to do great things. And so you are the hero in this story, because you are in Weklamot's corner as Weklamot does all the things, and you're like, hey, good job, you're doing it. And it's about this this character who is hyper positive and wants to like change the world, understanding that the world's a little bit more like messed up than that, and maybe, like, it's nice to be positive, but sometimes you gotta like beat up your friend who's being stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's that kind of vibe where I realized, I was like, oh my God, we're straight up just Ardberting this thing. Like, we are pure Ardbert. We're around and we'll give a little push if needed, but we have to watch. And it's really funny because sometimes that lands really well, and sometimes I was thinking, is this how Ardbert felt? Because I feel like I'm just sitting here and like, hey, do you need help? No, you don't want help. You're gonna let your dad handle this. Are you sure? Okay, your dad is dead. Do you want me to help now? No? You're gonna, are you sure? Okay, well, I'm here if you need me. Like, sometimes that's frustrating. Like,
yeah, tell me about it.
I realized early on that everything in Dawntrail, everything, from the zone quest to the overarching story, all of it falls squarely into side quest territory for our character. Every single enemy that appears, I'm like, let me off the leash. I can one-shot this guy. Let me handle this. And she's like, no, I'm gonna beat this with the power of smiles. And I'm like, all right, do your thing, kid. Like, I'll be here. But the entire time I was like, just let me. And it's made all the more clear later when Zara just sends his forces, and every one of our friends just stomp them. Dragons show up, stomp them. Yep. All of the heroes stomp, and they're not even a threat. They're like not a threat.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, no, they absolutely suck. I could end them all. And it's that kind of thing where I had to disconnect from that, because I can absolutely, as the hero, stomp them. But again, the villains in this place don't know who we are. The heroes, the townfolk, no one knows who we are. And our friends are not mentioning it. No one's like, yeah, this is little JC, the absolute goat who just beat the concept of despair. Like, that's not even, they don't even mention it. You were sitting there just like, hi, I'm on vacation. Do if you need me, I'll be over here eating tacos. Like, that's the vibe of the expansion.
Well, a great moment for that is when you're in the solo duty as Wuklamut fighting off against Bakul Jar Jar, and you can see your character on the sideline going, "Woo, go on, you got him, go on, give him a hit." And yeah, I think that was, everything you've just said personified in the game. In that moment where you are literally a cheerleader in that moment. And yeah, I mean, saying about being lit off the leash, like, we could atomize anything.
Everyone.
That came before us. But that wouldn't be fun, which is why it's such a great moment to be able to actually, as you said, be sat there with a pina colada, maybe some tacos, and just be like, I'm chilling, I'm having a good time. Sure. How did you feel with that mindset going into the second half when our history began to sort of bleed its way into not only Wuklamut's mind, but then the populace of Tural, where we were like, yeah, so there's a reflection. Would you like to know what a reflection is? Let me tell you.
Yeah, the biggest issue I had, I think, is this is an execution issue. Yeah. It's very clearly they're doing something similar to Endwalker, which is like, once you hit around level, in this case 97, it's about to get real weird, and that's fine. I'm here for that. I love that. Except I think some of the things that I forgave in Endwalker, I was like a little over by Dawntrail. So in Endwalker, it was a lot of like, go to a place, talk to people, go to a place, talk to people. And I was like, yo, I like this because it's the end of the story and I want all the story I can get. Now we're starting something new, and it's the same, like, go to a place, talk to a person, go to a place, talk. I'm like, what if we fought a few things in between this? Like that, I'm down for that. So I think, like, execution-wise, I feel like that was a missed thing they did.
Well, on that topic, that's something I've been very vocal about since, because I've really tried to mull over my feelings over the past month since I beat the game, because, and I'm not sure if you felt similarly, but I was made aware very early on that there was a lot of negativity online regarding Dawntrail, which made me go into the expansion with my blinders up a little bit, where I was giving it a little bit more grace and a little bit more wiggle room. So when, I think it was in Urkapacha and Kozamalka, I was yearning for just a little something to break up the monotony of go here, talk there, talk here. Just let me go hit something for a minute. That would be great.
Sure.
But in the moment, I didn't vocalize it because I thought, no, I can't be negative right now. There's a lot of that out there. I'm going to try and be as positive as I possibly can be. But it wasn't until after I beat the MSQ and I was sort of reminiscing on the journey that I thought, yeah, I feel like it could have used a bit more gameplay in those moments just to break up the monotony just a little bit. Because I love the lore and I love being, thrown all of this information, but I just needed a little break in between to let my brain just relax and go like, orc smash them on face mode just for a little bit,
I don't know if it was their intention or if it was my supreme copium thinking about it, but I was like, I feel like the devs are like, hey, if you want that, go do side quests. Yes. The main story is the main story quest. And I get that. I feel like that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah, I agree.
The thing is that still, I feel like there should be a lot more showing, not telling. And there was a lot of telling in this expansion. If you want to know the past or a story or something, they would tell you rather than you engaging in something. Like, I would much rather do a bunch more find reeds and deal with poison frogs than go to a place, talk to some goblins, run to another place, talk to some goblins, run to another place. Like, I don't know, have me do something for the goblins. I don't know. I wish there was more of that. It doesn't necessarily need to be fighting. Just like give us things to do. But I definitely feel like in their mind they were like, well, that's why there's side quests. But the community has so specifically said ignore side quests right now that as the devs, and they're very receptive to listening to the community, I feel like that's one of the things they should pick up on is people, when they play the story, are playing the story and that's it. And then they go back to the side quest with an alt.
Yeah.
Or a different job.
Yeah,
gotcha. And so I'm like, all right. So that came off as something to me. But I think the big, the issue I had, even though I like the first part, I like the second part, I muted everything about Dawntrail. Because I wasn't going to play for 2-3 weeks after it launched. So I muted everything. I didn't want to be spoiled. I don't want nothing. And after I came out of my self-imposed exile, I was like, I wonder what the internet thinks. I was like, oh, yeah. So I definitely wasn't on board with some of the hate that was going on, but there are some things that did not gel with me. But again, I think because I was so focused on like the side path I was on that it didn't matter really. But there are some things like I'd be a fool not to mention. So a great example is the first half of the game is all about Wuklamot going around and learning about the peoples of the land that she wants to rule and learning about their cultures. And in my mind, after the Mamulja section, my assumption the story was trying to teach us was that it is okay to learn about other people's cultures. It's okay to respect their cultures. But sometimes cultural traditions are bad and they need to be broken. And a good leader is one that can lead people out of that bad tradition and find something better. I was like, it's very clear they're killing babies. These are bad people who this tradition of trying to make two-headed kids is like not good. So let's move on from that. And that was, I was like, okay, yeah, we learned some things. The minute we end up in Solution 9, we end up with the Endless, Wuklamot's like, Sphene, that's a good egg. And the entire time I'm like, do not trust her. Do not trust Sphene. Dude, I have been here. Don't trust these people. This seems super shady. And Wuklamot's like, my good friend Sphene. I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, they keep killing people, but then they put them in like a machine core as like memories, so that's fine. I'm like, what?
What is it really?
What are you talking about? Yeah. And the entire time I was like, what do you mean? She's clearly evil. She's like, no, Zoralja's evil. Sphene's just caught up in it. I was like, no. I was like, I don't know if you missed that cutscene where the voice came out of the thing, welcome up, but that voice was like, I'll do whatever you want. Let's go cause some damage. I'm like, what do you the entire time I'm like, do not trust this woman. And going into that, having that mentality of like, I don't trust anyone here, when they start getting crazy and they start dropping things like this is the memory of someone you love, and boy, it's gonna be real hard to turn them off. Me? I was like, nah, flip that switch. Flip it. I don't trust anyone here. And what's even more interesting to me is that, and at the end I came to a revelation, and I don't know if it's copium or it's just like I feel like I'm smart, but the entire time I was like, we literally went to the ends of the universe to fight a giant bird girl on the back of my arch nemesis in order to save people's lives of the living, right? It wasn't about, we beat up Emmett because Emmett was like, I'm going to bring back all my friends because like I love them and all you will die. And I'm like, no, bitch, we're going to beat you so I can keep my friends alive. We go to the ends of the universe to keep my friends alive. The threat here is that the memories of long dead people will get to exist, but everyone else dies. Like, we're gonna kill everyone to keep memories alive. And I was like, what? No.
Yeah, exactly.
and I realized, I think halfway through, I was like, oh, wait. Kryl has to talk with her parents and flip that switch. Erenville has to talk with his mom and flip that switch. Wuklamot has to go through this journey with basically Zoralja's her Xenos and Sphene is her Emmett Selk. And I was like, oh my God.
That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, I see that.
I was like, hold up. The two characters that didn't go with us to Ultima Thule, Erenville and Kryl, now get their own existential moment where they have to like look death in the face, but except this time it's their parents. I was like, okay. So everyone's just getting caught up. And I was like, oh my God, Wuklamot's entire story. We are seeing the new world through her eyes as she goes around exploring. But really what's happening is we are artbirding a character. The first half of this is pure A Realm Reborn with the machinations of Heaven's War.
100%.
It's going around, learning about the zones, yet at the same time, it's people vying for control of the throne. And they're scheming and they're doing all sorts of stuff. It's pure first two expansions. Then a war breaks out, and now we have to go follow a young woman as a person trying to lead her people, and so we get very Stormblood stuff. And by the time we're deep into Solution 9, we have our Emmett Selk, who's like, look, I'm just trying to keep my people alive. I don't understand the problem here. We have our Xenos character, who's like, hey, right? I mean, I would say Bakul Jaja is basically almost like Gaius. We got like a Gaius character who's like, I was a villain, but now you all love me. And it's like, I don't know why, but I guess we do. And that's the thing there. And so it's all it's all this thing that I think they gave her a complete hero's journey that we got to witness. And again, I don't know if that's the best way to do a game, because witnessing a hero's journey is a lot less compelling than being on the journey, but we got to do it. And so we see this all go down, and at that point I was like, okay, all right, I understand what we're doing. This is kind of a for her thing, but again, the entire game, I was just like, I could kill this guy. Just tell me when. Just tell me when we can end this right now.
Yeah.
And I think once we got to the end of the like endless story, the Alexandria story, I was like, so this is what we've been doing. Like, I came to the conclusion that I didn't care at all about the expansion, because really what I cared about was like, oh, we're getting there. We're doing it. We're doing the Jesse storyline. It's happening. We are going on our Indiana Jones adventure, and I'm so excited. And now I'm thinking of all the possibilities of where it could lead, because early in the expansion, I realized like, oh, damn, they're going somewhere. When we first find the portal and we see all the like weird rocks. And straight up, they're just like, this writing looks like some sort of like proto Lalafell something or other from some. I was like, that's the minute I realized, I was like, oh my God, we are going there, because all of the things clicked in my head where it's like, on stream, I'm going back, reading the variant dungeon logs, like, yo, right here, it says right here that there were these Lalafells, and they were on this island, and then they disappeared. Like, how'd they disappear? What happened? I'm like, all right, so they went through a portal. So, like, we know that. I'm like, but how'd they get through that portal? And then I'm, like, piecing things together. Meanwhile, there's a whole other story over here. Wuklamut's like, hey, I could use some help. I'm like, hold on, I'm theory crafting.
Wait a second, Wuklamut.
And I'm thinking, like, oh, my God. So we have got this whole thing. And then I remembered back in Endwalker, there's a whole line of dialogue. It's like, just the other day, Asim like ran into a volcano. That was crazy. And I was like, you mean the same volcano in the variant dungeon? And then by the end of this expansion, they're like, and then in the volcano, I'm like, what? What the hell? So it's all coming together. And I'm like, we are 100% going to go on. My dream is that we have some sort of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade-esque adventure to follow in the footsteps of our long deceased, I don't know, progenitor, whoever the hell we would be. The version of us that is long gone, that at some point in time, long ago, did something, went on some sort of because obviously they weren't involved in the end of days. Like, so what were they up to? What was going on?
Exactly.
And finding that story, I think, could be a whole other adventure, and it doesn't have to be like, a big bad kind of thing. My version, the Jesse Cox version, we have to go around to the other shards, the other reflections.
I'm listening.
And find the other reflections of ourselves, because in order to unlock the mystery of going down this path, we need to be like, the only one who can do it is a full ass Azem, and we are not. So we need everyone involved. So we have to go around and like form the Asim Vengers, right? And we got to go around.
Asim Vengers. Okay, I like it.
We got to, And so it's all this. So that's our new character set. There's new friends that we meet across the way. It's brand new characters. They're the new us's. And we all have to work together in order to solve this thing. And it's like an Indiana Jones adventure across multiple expansions. You can bring friends in. You can have other characters. I feel like one of the biggest things they did that is kind of a screw up is they kept, for some reason, trying to include the Scions. And half the time they did nothing of value. And it's like, you didn't have to do that. And so I feel like bring them in for different things, but most of it is us going around. So like, you have to go to that southern continent, because even though it's destroyed and a total mess, there's a clue down there and we have to find it. Like that kind of stuff. We go through the whole thing. And then as we meet all these characters and we have fun with all of them, then as we get to the end, one of them is one of the Azem guys is the bad guy, and we have to fight one of ourselves, because much like Star Trek, the way Star Trek went is the way that Final Fantasy XIV should go. Star Trek, Captain Kirk fights Klingons, fights Romulans, fights all that stuff. But by the time we get to, like, he time travels in the fourth, there's time travel in the fourth movie. But then 5th movie, fights God. Fights God, wins. 6th movie, fights himself. All I'm saying is Captain Kirk fights himself in the. We got to do that. We have to fight ourselves. The only one stronger than us is another us, and so we have to battle a different version of ourselves. That's like right, but it's to get the ultimate goal. And what's that goal? Who knows? Maybe it could be the thing that leads to the next story arc. But it's one of those things that's like we got to go on a Jet Li the One kind of adventure, but. The point is that we need all of ourselves together in order to get to the end.
I get you.
I was like, that'd be fun. It'd be goofy.
Yeah, because I've had similar thoughts and theories myself, and I feel like because to go back to what you said earlier about Azem not partaking in the final days, having been removed and left the convocation, and denying Vanar's request to come and join them. What was Azem doing in that interim period? That weird patch of time where we don't know what they were up to. And my own thoughts.
It's very clear, at least from at some point, Azem went into that volcano, left the crystal or something, and then the Lalafells made a cup out of it. Timeline wise, because there's no way that there's a previous us shows up there and is like, here you go, have this. Because the timeline is way off. At least in that case. So it's like, what happened there? What? And I feel like there's a whole mystery that would be worth delving into because it's about us again, right? Yeah. It's who we are. We're unlocking who we are. Maybe we find something we don't like. Maybe we weren't that cool of a guy. Maybe we were kind of an asshole like Emmett Soke was that guy's intolerable. Maybe, who knows, right?
Yeah, well, the thing is, for me, where my mind's gone is Azem has the power of foresight. That's his shtick, his or her shtick.
Sure.
As we find out when we go back to see Elidibus and chat with him at the beginning of the Pandemonium raid series, and he was told, oh, Azem said you were coming. So we know that Azem has a level of foresight beyond that of the other ancients. Did Azem see something in the future, having known Vanar's plan to sunder the world, and thought, I need to be putting something in place, a failsafe as it were, to prevent something bad coming down the line? What that is, I've been trying to, work through my own theories and thoughts. Something I've kept coming back to is Ultima. Ultima came to the unsundered paradise way before the sundering occurred, and gave the Heart of Sabik over. Was Ultima an alien being, or, and this is something else I've been thinking a lot about since Myths of the Realm had concluded, we don't know if there is a true pantheon, if there is a true godly pantheon in the 14 mythos, because up until now it had been the 12. That's who we assumed were the gods. We've only now come to realize, oh wait, they're just Vanar's mates. That's who they were. So is there a true pantheon that exists, and is Ultima and the Heart of Sabik a product of an evil god, potentially, trying to corrupt mankind? Very Garden of Eden-esque, with the apple and the snake. Is that what's going on? And had Azem been aware of that and knowledgeable of there's something beyond us, there is a greater power that I need to be dealing with. Vanar and the Convocation and all, they're doing their own thing. I need to be dealing with that in some way, shape, or form. And maybe that's the journey we're going to go on. That's just my main thread at the minute. Because I feel like Final Fantasy, JRPGs as a whole, does lead to God and the cosmos. And that's where I'm at the minute. But I love the Asim Vengers idea big time. The idea that us all reconnecting would allow us to tap into some indelible part of our soul where a permanent memory is etched. But we need everyone together. Because right now it's all scattered and a bit, unintelligible. But if we all touch hands and wish hard enough, our memories become clear, and that reveals unto us Azem's master plan. That is very intriguing, and I'm willing to buy in on that big time.
I like the idea of and it's so easy to have one of them turn on everyone, because if we're supposed to be the most powerful people alive, right? we technically are more powerful than our other reflections because we got like the source version.
Yeah.
And so I can see how one, like, if you are the most powerful, then you meet someone who's just like better than you, but not because they're more gifted, just because they exist in a different existence. Yeah. Like, you could be like, I want that for me, right? It's so easy to make that character.
100%.
I am intrigued as to if what you're saying about sort of a visions of the future, because yeah, we did get told, I was told you'd arrive here, so clearly that's something. I don't know how it would work, but I like the idea of if you can see in the future and you see that we're successful, very similar to a boy, it all goes back to Arbert. Arbert and his team were successful. They won and they still lost, right?
Yeah,
and so I feel like the idea of, because in my mind, as you were saying that, I was like, okay, so the idea is Hydaelyn Vana sets up this whole thing, knows what's going to happen in the future, and sets this all up. That seems very, very similar. So if we got another story that was like, yeah, they knew what was going to happen and set it all up, and so it'd have to be like a superseding thing, which
true.
could be that outside force, like in Ultima or Genova, which, by the way, if they time it with the next Final Fantasy VII, whatever the hell the third game is, it could very well just be like, it's Genova. We haven't had a lot of Final Fantasy VII stuff. But this other thing, I think it could be kind of a Azem realizes or sees that through our victory, we free the planet from all of the like various godly figures, but even though they were kind of like keeping us down, at the same time, they're out there carrying the planet. They're like fighting off the monsters and doing all this stuff. And so without any of those big protectors, like we're it. And so knowing that could lead potentially to like, okay, here's what you have to do. But because I want to make sure that it's me of the future, I did this whole thing where I set up like, you got to go here, you have to find this, and you have to find this piece and this piece. And then it can lead to the MacGuffin. Like right now we have a little cup MacGuffin thing, but like it could lead to the thing that's like, this will defeat the big bad and help you save the day at the end of like 4 expansions from now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like it all could work. I think I like the idea of a really fun like adventure quest thing where it's the reason why you're going around is because you're straight up just Indiana Jonesing. You are dungeon diving, you are looking for lost relics. It's all connected to some overarching story, and in the end, whatever that thing is, it's one of those like, yo, this is powerful, but also there's a reason why our former self hid it away. Yeah, because it's like you can't control the power, and then that gives bad guy us the chance to be like, well, it should be used, right? Give him a whole Boromir thing at the end. He can be like, oh, I really screwed up. Like, it's fine, whatever. Yeah. But it can be that way, and we can have that adventure where we get to explore, and it could be like all the clues, we're just been giving clues the entire time, and it could be fun in a way that they're like, yo, you've been getting clues the entire time. There's so many loose threads that can go back and like secretly retcon and be like, actually, this is what this meant. And it's like, oh, and it can do that.
But they've done that so much already and to such great effect. Like I have next to me, and I'm not sure if you've got them, but the Encyclopedia Eorzeas are an absolute treasure trove, where I look back on the very first one, and there's something in there which isn't necessarily elaborated on, but it's very definitely this loose thread. And what happens is they get to Endwalker and they go, we're going to yank that thread, and all of a sudden give it purpose. Yep. Did they know back in A Realm Reborn that the Heart of Sabik would be a product of Ultima and would then be relevant in the raid series of Endwalker? I highly doubt it. I'm going to let you know
right now, 100% no. I've talked with Yoshida about this. There is a thing about Dawntrail is I promise you, for everything we're saying, I promise you, they are just like, we have no clue what this is going to end up being. And they've said with A Realm Reborn, they made A Realm Reborn because they were like, we got to make something. And that's why half of A Realm Reborn feels like 1.0. And if you played 1.0, it's roughly the same, but like not. And then Heaven's Ward was sort of this new direction. And then Stormblood was another direction. And then it wasn't until the end of Stormblood they coalesced like, all right, here's the story we want to tell. It took them 6 years to get there. So I don't expect them to have any sort of overarching, like, we have a plan.
Yeah.
And I expect they threw a bunch of stuff at the board, especially for Dawntrail, because they're starting over. I expect they threw so many darts. They're like, let's do this, let's try this, let's try this. And then they're going to see what worked and what didn't. And they're going to be like, okay, let's never do that again. And let's do this.
Yeah, exactly. And
I hope that's what's going on.
Well, they've been receptive to just fan feedback as well, haven't they? Because from what I've read, and I'm not 100% sure on this, Graha was supposed to stay dead at the end of 5.3, but it wasn't until people, were like, I love him. He's my favorite cat boy ever. That the dev team were like, well, we'll bring him back then. Go on, we'll bring Graha back. So I think that aids them, but at the same time can be a thorn in their side. That ability to take on board that criticism and then implement it into the game. I sincerely do hope that it doesn't result in them cutting off Wooklamut in any capacity because of people's complaints about her.
I feel like Wooklamut is going to be Lise. There's no possible way that that's a character who suddenly just becomes a Scion friend and hangs out with us. That's a character who has to run a kingdom. If Wooklamut leaves to go on adventures, you're a crappy leader. Lise was like, look, I love y'all, but this is my job.
I've got to lead my people.
Run.
Yeah, exactly.
I will show up every once in a while, and you'll be happy to see me. And I honestly feel like that's going to happen here.
100%. 100%.
All these people are like, oh, Wooklamut, blah, blah. There's gonna be 2 expansions from now. Wooklamut's gonna roll in with like a crew of Palo people, like, hey, what's up? And we're gonna be like, hey,
it's Wooklamut.
Absolutely.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I mean, even at the end, we have that moment with Erenville where he's backpackless, which threw me for a loop. I thought, why does he look so... he doesn't have that massive backpack on. And he's like, oh, I might want to adventure a little bit more. And we're like, okay, you're welcome to. But yeah, I hope that she does get that Lise treatment. I think that would be perfect, along with Kona, of course, because
I feel like that's what it is, right? Like we
100%
watched a character grow, go through this whole story, but they're not part of our team because it was our team, right? Everyone who's on our team, they're clearly second fiddle to us. Yeah. This is we're watching someone else do a thing. It's a very Lise-like story, and at the end, my assumption is she'll probably be around, much like all of the dragon stuff in 6.1 to 6.5. And she'll be there, but she's not gonna when we go to she's not gonna buddy with us. It just makes no sense. Again,
100%.
She doesn't know who we are.
Yeah.
Like we are a friend of a friend who just happened to be around. We're only there because Erenville was like, yo, this dude's actually really good at his job. And we're like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
we're not like gonna go on buddy adventures. We're there to help, and we helped. And now it's like, all right. So,
yeah, for me, I feel like I could see her existing in the patch quests and aiding, us aiding her in not necessarily rebuilding to the Olal, but repairing the rifts that were opened up by the war. But then also maybe watch her bridge the gap between To the Olal and Solution 9 and offer them support along with Galul Jar. Which brings me on to something else which I know Yoshida brought up in an interview recently, and it's something that I think a lot of us have not necessarily glossed over, but we've been so like, Azem, the symbol, what could it mean? Sfien's Resonator, at the very end, as it sort of lights...
her crown?
Yeah.
Sure.
And what that might mean. And I think Yoshida gave a little bit away.
I absolutely have a theory.
I am ready to hear your theory.
I would love to know. Hold on. Do you have a theory on this?
My theory at the minute is that we will find a way to create a new Sphene out of whatever exists within the Resonator. One that is free of the dabblings of, what is the organization? Preservation. Because Preservation altered or put firewalls in place to make her act a certain way and to sort of play on her love of her people to drive her to do heinous things like killing millions of people. I hope that we can sort of uncover, defragment her disk drive, as it were, and take out the pure part of her and allow her to exist as an eternal queen for Solution 9 that isn't hell-bent on mass murder. That's where I'm at the minute.
But didn't you enjoy meeting the son of a guy who we barely knew and got no really explanation for, and then made him leader of Solution 9? Wasn't that fine?
No, that was actually pretty
Why
good.
would we need to replace that little child? Why?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. Why would we do that? That little child had so much backstory.
But he's so
In fact,
cute,
so much
Jesse.
backstory.
He's so cute.
I must stress, one of the funniest things that made me laugh out loud in this entire expansion is we're sitting there around that campfire, and that little boy is just like, "You want me to tell you about my past?" And then Otis is like, "No, I'm gonna tell you for 30 minutes about the past of me and the queen." And that little boy is just like, "Okay." I still don't know about that child. I don't know who's that child's mom is. I don't know what's going on with that kid. That kid just like showed up. I was so convinced that there's so little backstory. I was like, oh no, that kid's a clone of Zaralja. I was like, that's a clone.
Yes.
And then everyone was like, no, that's his kid. I was like, okay, I guess we just all accept it. But I'm convinced that because all the technology stuff didn't really happen until the Lalafell showed up, right? The Lalafells rolled in, by the way, shout out to my Malalas, the heroes. They came in through the portal, and it was then that they took all that technology and they made the Electrope and they made all the different things, right? So it's that Lalatech. The Lalatech comes from, I would assume, knowing about something going on with the ancients and potentially Azem and stuff like that, right? So my thoughts is because all the tech stems from our world, that the crown is, that symbol is 100% the Azem face mask symbol.
Ooh. Okay.
And that's why it's important. It may not lead to anything now, but later on we'll find out that's what it is. And that's, and I think it's funny, and this is because there's a heart in it. And I feel like that heart is because our sweet little old self went around and was nice to people. And so his mask had like a little heart in the middle of it.
I could see it. I could see
so
it.
I was like, that could be super fun if that's the case. And then it doesn't have to be a major thing, but it can be a thing like, oh, all that tech they brought forward was based off of like ancient technology. And they learned that sort of rune weaving tech. And that's how they made the cup, right? So it's possible they made the crown as well, because she didn't have one of the little Detroit Become Human things. Which, by the way, the minute I saw one of those, I was like, "This is Detroit Become Human. They're villains. Do not do this." I was like, "This is like everything about Solution 9." I was like, "Everyone here is do not trust anyone." Do not, and every character is like, "You good eggs." I'm like, "No."
My favorite moment is when we go back to them at the very end, and Galul Jar is there, and we're like, "So, yeah, you guys are cool. Sfien's dead. Zaral Jar is gone. You can continue to use your souls in your little memory chips. You good?" And they're like, "Sounds good to us."
Yeah,
and then we cut back to Tuliolal. It just felt nonsensical that it was hand waved in such a way. But no, I do like the idea that it might be Azem's mask. I know people were theorizing about the masks in the volcano because there are 4, and they thought that 3 of them were for the Unsunded, and then the last one would be us. And I believe some people
looked through those. I spent way too long going through those, and I was like, nah, none of these connect. There's like, they look slightly remotely kind of similar, but not in any way that's like,
when it's in your mind's eye, you can maybe make connections, but for me, it felt like too big of a stretch. I'm with you. So I was going to say, I know some people were theorizing that maybe the Scion Traveler's mask would be Azem's, but I much prefer your idea, especially with the heart. I hadn't even considered that.
There's like straight up a heart in the middle of it, and I was like, that's very cute, and it could just be, to them it's a symbol, but to us it's a revelation, like, oh man. And again, we got they did the thing they usually do where everything's going down and then a character just goes, and then other characters like, and you're like, what are you saying? So now we have to wait and find that information out. And so I assume that's something that it will be. Right now is nothing. I promise you, they don't know what the two of them said to each other. But like in a year and a half, we'll probably get some revelation like, this is actually what they said. Like, okay.
I just like the idea that the writers meet up every day and go, had a thought about the conversation yet? Nah, not a clue. All right, we'll meet back next week and have another thought about it.
I promise you that's what happened. They were like, well, how are we going to end the scene? It has to like go back to your character. She's going to say something to you. Like, what'd she say? That's the thing. we don't
We
say
don't.
what it is.
Yeah.
I promise you that's what happened in that writer's room. And they were just like, oh, it's genius. And they're like, yeah, we'll come up with it later. Don't worry about it.
I do
And
wonder
I'm
if they
pretty sure
read
that will
like
happen.
fan theories and speculation online and maybe use that to maybe guide themselves. Because you know, this is the first time I've ever been like properly current, so I'm not aware of the inner workings of it. But I'd love to know if they're like secretly online, like, oh, they're theorizing about that. It's pretty good. We could maybe work that in here. Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe we'll include that in later. What do you think will actually happen with the crown? Do you think we'll see Sphene again in any capacity, or do you think she's gone?
I feel like the point of shutting down the system was to get rid of her and to prevent her from doing what her like programming was. I guess we could sort of bring her back like White Vision and do a sort of Marvel reboot thing.
That's kind of, I could see that.
I don't know that that's going to happen. I feel like the crown is like, I mean, we could get another story where it's like the crown plus the cup equals something. You know what I mean? Like there could be different levels and layers. I'm so deep into this whole Azem thing that like, hold on, let me see if I can do this to you. You might want to show this on screen because I'm full on crazy now with this stuff.
I'm all on board, man. I'm all on board.
So what did I do with it? I have been just getting messages from people all the time because I'm convinced. I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a thing, and this could be something exciting. Someone showed me, and I feel like the smart version of me would have saved these images, but I cannot find them to save my life. Here's what I'll say. The crystal that we were given was created, at least canonically created by Emmett Selk as like a different, but it's imbued with some of the power that Azem had, right?
Yeah, made by him, wasn't it? Like a recreation made by him of Azem's magic, yeah.
Right. And it has like one of his favorite spells or whatever the flavor text says. Like one of his favorite things is in there. That favorite spell draws people from across dimensions in time, right? And so, and I was like, oh, you know, that's cute because that is very, like, the way that things can get retconned is absolutely crazy. Like, so you have this ability to draw things from dimensions and it opens this portal thing, right? At the same time, it's being used by Sphene to create that big sky portal thing. Like the power, right, that's in the cup is the same that's on, I mean, the cup is what got them to the Lalafells to the other reflection, right? So it's the same, it's the same concept as the crystal, except the crystal only has one version of the spell, while the cup probably has all sorts of different ones, right? But it opens a big sky portal. Please, everyone, go back and do the last Nier raid. The final boss opens the exact same portal.
Really? Ooh.
And now you may say, interesting. What does that mean? I don't know, but it's the exact same portal, and I feel like that's less of a reused asset at this point, and more of a that's how you get. Because the end of the Nier raid is basically the end of whatever the hell that game that wasn't Nier, where you flew on the dragon, and the secret level is you end up in Japan, you end up in Tokyo, right? And so, like, if that's what it is for Nier, and again, Yoko Taro was like, it's all canonical to Nier. So if that portal opens, we can say, sure, that could be a side quest thing and its own thing, but mechanically, a portal to another world is open twice and they look the exact same.
Yes.
So that is some kind of like hey, hint that that's how that works. And that's probably the same vibe that the Lalafells used when they went through the other reflection. And so I was on this kick and I was thinking about this and I was doing all this stuff. And man, this is gonna make me so frustrated. I was Yep, okay, found it. Never mind. We're good. Shout out to Ocelot who sent me this. I don't know if this is the greatest stretch in the history of stretches, or this is absolutely right on the money. So if you so one of our powers, obviously, I'm going to send you this first one.
Okay.
I'll put it in chat for everyone to see as well. So we have this image, which is just your normal. This is us, right? This is the portal we all take. This is how we exist in the world. I'll put that there. Boop, enjoy. Right? So that's what happens. That's the summon. We get the summon. Boom. We have the symbols. And in those slots, 7 of our friends show up. And it's a canonical thing. It's a thing that like we actively do, right? And so I was like, yeah, this is gonna be really cool. I can't wait to delve into this. And I thought, oh sure, maybe the outside is sort of the symbol of Azem, right? Like that's a thing, who knows? But then, if you recall, one of the things they mention when you tour Tuliolol is they're like, hey, the king, the Dawn Servant, when he went on his grand adventure and he like went around and did the Indiana Jones thing I wish I had done, he goes around
right.
and he comes back, and originally the Yakui or whoever the hell existed, they were seeing visions of crazy shit, but they also built this giant thing. And we have experienced now multiple times that they built the Ronken serpent place. They've built they have tapped in these ancient giants, tapped into all sorts of weird stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like how they get that, like how's it bleed over? It doesn't make a lot of sense. And you recall that the building, the capital, was not originally inhabited by the people that live there now. It was empty, and they took it over, right? And so I just want to say that this was then sent to me, and now my entire world, it could be Supreme Cope, or it could be the greatest secret we've ever unlocked ever in the history of secrets.
I'm ready to go all in on the Cope. Give it to me.
There you go. Enjoy.
Oh,
that's my
reaction. That's my immediate reaction. Whoa, here we go. Let's get on here.
So the symbol that appears on the side of your thing there is in fact the actual capital. Dude, I was like, bro, what?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's Cope, and frankly, I don't care because that's awesome. I was like, dude, let's go. So if this whole thing is the start of us going down the adventure to be like, it was always us. Like, yo, that would be awesome.
I'm fully with you. Because again, it's one of those things where it's such an easy thread to yank, and it's something that's so hidden away as well. Like I'm looking at the image right now, and again, it might just be because we want it to be, but I will happily.
Like it's clearly, it's not a perfect 1-to-1, but like, why'd they build it that way? For what purpose did they create the building to look like that? I don't know.
For me, I think it's ever since we had the Dawntrail intro with the halo going around the temple. That made me think a little bit Azem, but that's full on just copium, me wanting Azem. But when we had the halo appear at the very end of the game, as it is in the screenshot, I did pause and think, are we related to this in more ways than we know? And it goes back to the earlier thing I mentioned about Azem's foresight. Like, has Azem had the foresight to know, okay, I need to make sure this event happens so that this character meets this character, because this is the timeline that we need to bring about in order to defeat X, Y, or Z. And is this just another part of it? Like the Yokoi having these visions and being able to tap into that in some capacity, because I think my theory when I was playing through the Dawntrail MSQ was, seeing as it only appeared to them when they were within the quarries, that maybe there were ephemeral pieces of ether that were making their way out of the portal, and then that was latching onto them in some way, and maybe that was why when they went to sleep they had the dreams and the visions of this golden city. I do like the idea that maybe there's something more to it, especially with them doing the whole Ronken thing, which that whole side quest dungeon was
I love that dungeon.
treat.
That's one of my favorite dungeons in the game. It's so good.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Like when you open the gates, because when we approached the big temple at the end, I thought that looks a bit Ronken, and then the gates open, and then you just see the great serpent at the back, and I was on my knees like, wait, what? I'm not ready for another revelation like this at this point in the game. Like I was an autopilot. For me, I thought this is finally my summer vacation. And then I went and did that dungeon and thought, oh, I've got to reevaluate so much. And then we run into the guy afterwards whose name I've forgotten. But he's like, well, what if across all of these reflections, there is some commonality between like different heritages and different civilizations? And I feel like that's another breadcrumb for something to look forward to when we dabble more with the 4 remaining reflections. Well, I imagine 3 now, considering we know what happened to the 9th.
That's the
in
thing is like,
Dawntrail.
it's one of those things that do we, right? Like the ninth, if it clearly wasn't reconnected, right? And so I think that the most obvious thing about it is like, they went through all the elements already and then just started reusing them. Feels like the vibe. I mean, that's what I felt the entire time. Everyone's like, no, dude, this is just the 12th all over again. They're like, I was like, I don't know. The timeline that makes no sense. That was one of the first calamities. Like like we're off by a couple thousand years.
The
guys.
moment we find out the Malala came to that world, and then we know that couldn't have
timeline wise
happened.
But everyone's like, oh, it's a time thing. Time dilates weird. And I was like, okay, I mean, I'll buy it. Like, I'm not going to complain otherwise. But I think now we know that it's the ninth. It makes more sense. Plus Alexandria, like it makes sense it was the ninth. The thing that we don't know is like we have a bubble of a city that exists. But like, how messed up is the world? What's going on over there?
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions that I don't know that we can say like it's destroyed because it clearly isn't. But it could be similar to the first, where like some of it's a mess and some of it is just fine.
Yeah. Because I was going to say you can see the skybox now after the MSQ is concluded, and they've purposefully made the fly height really, really small in the living memory.
Yeah.
You can kind of see beyond the extent of the city, and it isn't like the void where everything is gone to shit. But then, like the first. Not all of it's gone to shit, but the sky's still decent after we fixed it. So, who knows what lies beyond. Will we touch upon that in the patch quests? I wouldn't mind. I don't really know where the patch quests are going to go, but I would like to explore that a little bit more. Maybe take Y'shtola for a ride and say, hey, look at this. Do you have any thoughts and feelings, Y'shtola?
Well, I think that one dungeon is the one that's like the Halloween dungeon. Is I think a perfect example of the sort of overlaps we're starting to see, because that is very clear, at least to me. It felt like the ninth tried to go to the 13th to kill people in the void, and then it got like a little stuck in the warp there. Because even though people are like, dude, it's not the 13th, I'm like, these are clearly the same enemies that you fight when you go and you fight like the queen at the end of that one raid. I'm like, I feel like this is the beginning of things are going to get real crazy, where like maybe things start overlapping and maybe we'll have, and I was like, I mean, if we're going to have the void exist and we're going to have its polar opposite in the first, then let's start getting weird. Let's do some fun things. So I don't know.
I would like to see them go in that direction and get real weird, because for me that's when 14 is at its absolute best, when we're in unfamiliar environments, not just in 14 but sort of in RPGs as a whole, when they're willing to go beyond where we'd imagine they would go. And what does that look like? I mean, to go back to your idea that there is going to be a rogue Azem out there, will they be in a powerful position upon a reflection? And it isn't just us having to maybe contend with our own self. It's our own self and the civilization they have built around them to one day come for us and claim our powerful soul as their own. Like maybe they have made themselves this, I don't know, god, this martyr in their eyes. And that is how...
if they're... I love this idea, and I think I just had the epiphany of like, oh my god, this is how we do this. Let's say next expansion, obviously this is just whatever. Let's say next expansion, we Asim Vengers, the whole thing.
Yeah.
We go around, we get our friends, like each new zone is a part of a different world, a part of a different reflection. And it's like, we're going around, we're meeting friends, and we could have like, Stevie, who is the lowest of the low. He's us, but he's like failed. He's not good at it. He kind of has a ukulele vibe where he's like, look, we lost, dude. Like we were terrible at this. And we can have that as a character, and we all go through and they can kind of do what they did with Heaven's Ward, which is they introduce the Warriors of Darkness and then they're gone for a while. And the idea of we introduce this Avengers team of us's, we go on this mission, we get the new MacGuffin that's going to lead us to something else, and it's like, thanks everyone, we needed you for this, and now you go back to your worlds and you protect them because you're us. Now you know what it means to be an Azem, and you go back and you do this whole thing. New expansion happens, we go do our thing. Next expansion after that, we discover that one of us is like ego tripping. And that's how we can get into like, he runs a society now and is a bad man and we taught him that. We taught him to like, you got to kick ass and like he took all the wrong lessons of being a hero.
Take no prisoners.
That'd be super fun. Yeah. Like he's like, I watched you kill like 1,000 dudes and you're telling me like I'm wrong? Like I took over this world to save them from murdering themselves. Like they can do a whole thing. And it could be like, bro, I've watched you kill so many people. Like, are you kidding me? You're not a hero.
A mass murderer. Yeah, I'm just doing what you did. And so, no.
I think it'd be super fun.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Because that's the fun part about following the lore of the game, and what you've mentioned about them not necessarily giving everything a meaning when it's its inception point in the game.
Right.
Like, everything can have relevance. Again, to go back to the Heart of Sabik, when they brought that in, they didn't know what it meant, but then now it's one of my favorite little things in the game. Claudien has this powerful artifact where one drop of like the ether inside could like destroy civilizations. It's that powerful. And he just has that now. When will that come back up into the story? When will we go to Blind Frost's North, which is something which Emmett teases, of course, at the end of Endwalker, of course, Mericidia once again. The fact that they haven't fully laid the railroad for where we're going yet means that any of these things at any moment can be plucked upon. And that is, as again, someone who likes to theorize like yourself, is one of my favorite parts about the game. And trying to, I love the idea that you've just come up with. That we, through our teaching, inadvertently produce a great evil who looks at us and does think, well, they've killed entire civilizations worth of people. And they travel around the world and kill this person and that person. They do this and that. I'll do that too. But obviously in their world that goes completely wrong in our eyes. I like that. How do we get to that point? I think is where I'm at the minute. Because I feel like there's so much left on the source that we're yet to really do. And I don't know... When do you imagine we get big picture Go Reflections? Is that next expansion? Expansion after? Because for me, go on.
I would love to hear what you think on this, because I'm all over the place.
Yeah, I am too, don't worry. I've longed to go to Mericidia. And I feel like that, considering they've put it on the world map, which is a bit of copium of myself, I feel like that is a next logical step. And something that I've really glommed onto is on multiple like item descriptions, mount descriptions, there is tell of the world tree over in Mericidia. And that makes me want to go on a Norse-esque inspired adventure. Give me the Blind Frost, give me the Bifrost, sorry. Thinking about Emmett's other teas. Give me the Bifrost, give me something to do with the world tree, bring the dragons in, and maybe that acts as a crucible for our crystal that we're now in possession of, and then we make some sort of inter-reflection gateway through this supposed world tree which sits upon Mericidia, and then that would be the breadcrumb for us to then go on this adventure to one of these yet unvisited reflections. There's only one other piece of media in the game which leads me down that path, and if you've never looked at it properly, go and analyze the floor of the Ocular, where we first meet Graha in Shadowbringers. Because on the floor, we've got the different circles around the outer perimeter, which show off the different reflections. But on top of that, there are lines which connect various reflections with each other. There are small little green circles in between other reflections. Graha knows a lot about the big picture stuff. He knows a lot about the reflections. He was able to deduce this one is the one which rejoined in the first calamity. This is the one which rejoined in the third calamity. He has more knowledge there than I think he's ever lit on, because it's not necessarily come up in conversation. I wonder if he knows more about that mural and what it might represent. I believe in the Encyclopedia Eorzea 3, which I happen to have next to me, it does mention the mural at the very beginning. I'm trying to find it.
Hold on. I'm confirming this.
Go on.
I'm confirming this.
It's page 13, chat. If you have it, it's page 13.
Lore nerd off. Let's go. All right. Page 13.
Yes. And then you'll find at the bottom it reads, a conceptual diagram of the source and its reflections. It is theorized that the worlds actually overlap each other in position, each occupying a separate, displaced layer of reality. The magnitude of this displacement varies, however, and this circular layout best illustrates the relative distances between them. But then between each of those reflections, you'll spy that there are then these orbital rings, as it were, which... why we could put them there for just purely aesthetic reasons, but I don't think they would do that. And then they've got these additional little green circles. What do they represent? Part of me during the Dawntrail MSQ wondered if Alexandria and Living Memory were actually in the Rift, where maybe as part of a failed rejoining, Alexandria had put themselves in a bubble and then like propelled themselves into the Rift where they've sort of existed. Because we've had little, I don't know, helpings of Rift-related lore in the Shadowbringers role quests. When, I forget the guy's name, but one of the mages, maybe someone in chat will remember his name, he manages to fall into the Rift. And then when we bring him out of the Rift, he is the exact same age as he was when he fell in there. Nilebert, there we go, thank you, Pi. And then beyond that, Zero goes into the Rift. And that is how she escaped the destruction in the wake of the Contra Memoria. So, I feel like there's more. It's Tainor. Sorry, thank you guys. Tainor, yes, is the boy who falls into the Rift. I feel like there's something going on there. And one of my theories in Shadowbringers was that maybe some of these reflections have already coordinated between themselves an inter-reflection alliance of sorts, where maybe a couple of the Ascians who we don't know about, because there are a couple who are unaccounted for, basically went rogue and said, we don't really want to do this. How about we just live life on our own separate reflections? If you didn't know, there's another reflection over here. We can go and like ally with them. We'll sort that out. We'll build like a portal. There's so many possibilities for what they can do in that space that it's almost overwhelming to even begin theorizing what might be out there and what these rings might mean, what might exist within the Rift, if anything.
I am curious about, so there's a few things that we don't have answers to yet. First off, they really, really heavy-handedly used what looked like an Ascian mask and all the promotional art for Arcadian.
Yes.
And then like, I guess maybe it's kind of the logo, but not really. So the mystery there is we don't know who the boss is. And that could be a whole thing. Whoever's in charge.
Do you have any thoughts or theories about that? Because
I have no clue, but I will. It could be interesting if it's something connected with preservation. Again, preservation's a whole other thing that we don't have answers to. That I feel like would be the 6.1 to 5 story of what that seems like a thing that we probably should deal with, but haven't. And have no real information on, aside from it's a thing that existed that set it all up, but like we don't know anything.
Yeah.
So and again, preservation could literally be what you were talking about, which is like, hey, look, we all screwed up. The whole Asim thing was a terrible idea. What if we try to like exist and maybe we can control something over here, and we can. Who knows? I have no clue.
I mean, preservation in and of itself does sound like an Ascian thing, doesn't it? Like,
absolutely.
I feel like in a roundtable meeting when they're discussing names, someone goes preservation. They're like, great job, Greg. We'll go with that. Preservation, amazing name.
But I mean, it also could just be like, it could be just people with weird intentions, right? Like, because their plan was we're gonna preserve Sphene to lead the people. But like, why did it have to be her? Like, what was the point of making sure it was her that you had to literally create an AI for? Like, why was she so important to this whole plan? I have no clue, right? It's one of those things that doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but is interesting. But again, I feel like knowing them, it'll lead to a thing, right? It'll be the start of something. And, it could be one of those things that we're fighting a group called Preservation 3 expansions from now. I have no clue. But it also could just be a thing that is the next few patches. It's like the 7.3 and then it's done, you know?
Yeah.
Because we're back on the old version, which is 1, 2, and 3 are going to be our end of Dawntrail, and then 4 and 5 are going to be like, let's get on to something weird. So, and based on the schedule they announced, we got like a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So they have plenty of time to come up with what this is going to end up being. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's on the topic of, you know, us knowing that they follow that format. Playing through Dawntrail, what did you feel about knowing, oh, a dungeon's coming at this level, I'm going to get a trial at this level, I'm going to get another dungeon here, there's normally going to be a plot twist which comes in at around, you know, something 87 or so. Did you find that affected your playthrough in any way where you just knew, oh, this is coming up? Because for me, the biggest glaring issue is them canonizing trusts, where our allies don't come with us. They're like, no, you must go, we can't come. Sorry, we can come now, actually. We've just had a revelation that you need us, so we're here. That happening, and like knowing it's coming, for me, always felt like I was not clock watching, but close to. But I'm thinking, oh, we're on the level 86 quest, something interesting's coming around the corner. Or when I'm like 82, coming up to 83, we've got that trial coming soon. What are the breadcrumbs which are going to lead me there? And the same with patch quests, because I know Endwalker diverted away from that typical pattern because we were going to go into a new story. But you have Realm Reborn, Heavensward, Stormblood, Shadowbringers, we knew the general layout of the patch quests. Point 1, point 2, point 3 wraps up the story. Point 4, point 5, point 55 is going to begin teasing and breadcrumbing what's to come. Do you find that is frustrating in a way? Because I feel like I kind of do, knowing that it's so calculated and so formulaic, whereas I wish they would break out of that mold in some way.
Yeah, I feel like Endwalker did, I don't know if I want to say a disservice, but by including the twist at 87, similar to the twists at the end of Shadowbringer, it became like, oh, here's the trope. So immediately I was like, all right, something. Even watching the trailer, I was like, oh, there's our halfway through the game moment.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, and yeah, it's a weird thing because I like being able to kind of deduce as a streamer when to stop. Because I'm like, okay, I'm getting pretty close to what is going to be me doing this for another 3 hours and another time. Like, it's fine. With that said, though, absolutely, I think the idea of 91, 93, 95, 97, 99 as dungeons is like, it's been that way so long. It's like, okay, all right. What if we switch it up? But then because you have the 3 trials, it's like, okay, well, maybe we can switch those up. Right? But it's like, no, 93 goes into that first trial every time, dude. That's just the way it is. And it's like, okay. And yeah, I wish they would switch it up just so things are unexpected. But I think that way about the actual dungeons and raids and things themselves. Like, I think the idea of going into a dungeon and knowing it's going to be 1 pool, 2 pool, or if you are saucy, pull both at the same time, and then 1, 2, pool 2, but like, oh, no, more pool, and then boss. Yeah. Repeat, and then boss, and then repeat, and then the final boss, and that's a dungeon. I think that I feel like that's played out. They switch it up where they're like, now you're riding on a thing and doing it. Like, okay, that's fun, but it's the same formula every single time now. And yeah, it's predictable, and it makes you feel comfortable, and you can like, all right, I know what I'm doing. This is going to be too crazy. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, we've been there. We've done that. It's the last at least 6 years have been the exact same vibe. Yeah. And switch it up. Go nuts. Like, I'm not going to hate you for it. But yeah, I think I'm with you that there should be some updating of some things. Yeah. Or at least change it. Try and change it, you know?
Yeah. Like, it's not at like the top of my wish list. It's just something that as I've begun thinking about the future of the game, like where we're going in the patch quests, I know it's pointless me thinking about point 4, point 5. I need to think about 3 beats because that's how they're going to tie this up and wrap the expansion up. But the idea that maybe like imagine like you do the intro quests to an expansion and then immediately there's a dungeon. Oh shit. Oh, okay. Well, that's unexpected. not that it necessarily wouldn't be otherwise, but it's just the idea that them shaking up the formula means that we're always on our toes guessing what's coming around the corner. Right. What could the next trial be? But when we knew Valagarmanda was coming up and, we arrive at the Yokoi, city, and they're like, there's Valagarmanda. Would be a massive shame if they were to break out, wouldn't it? It's like, well, we are at level 92, so I've got a feeling they're going to thaw out pretty quickly. Whereas I'd like to have a little bit more.
Yeah. No, that was my biggest critique of that entire storyline is... we see Valagarmanda, we talk about it, leave the area for 5 minutes, come back, set free. Then we're like, oh, Valagarmanda went over there, so let's go to that zone. I'm like, awesome. We walk over. It's not a zone, it's a battle. Then we leave the area, come back, and now we're in the previous zone we were in. I was like, but I wanted to see that. You told me that place was beautiful, and I can't even see how beautiful it is. All right, now we're back. And then we go back, and it's like, oh, Bakul Jaja, why'd you do that? You goofy guy. Yeah. All right, you're fine. We're going to grow to love you. Don't worry about it. And it's like, all that happened so quickly. None of it was given time to... It's just like, if I had to be critical of this expansion, there's so much of that. I think it's 100%. Because they were trying to get through an entire continent as quickly as possible, which, again, it reminded me a little of the Warcraft movie, which is like the first half of the Warcraft movie is them being like, here is the entire concept of everything going on, and then the last half, they finally decide they want to tell a story.
Yeah.
Same vibe.
Man, that's a deep cut. That's a deep cut. Well, I mean, it goes back to what you said earlier, right? 100%. You said earlier about how we go on this journey with Wuklamart, where she has her A Realm Reborn, she has her Stormblood, she has her Shadowbringers, she has her Endwalker moment. The thing is, for us, that took 10 years. So they tried to consolidate that entire journey into an expansion. And on paper, great. But I do feel like there are moments where the pacing feels really off. And one of the moments for me that really stuck out was... because I'd seen the launch trailer, I knew the Yokoi were going to be up my alley. I was very excited to get to them. And we get to the end of Kozamalka, we leave Earthenshire, and we're at the perimeter. The Yokoi are just through this canyon up ahead. And then this random bandit comes along and it's like, oh, Wuklamart, would you like to come with me? And we know as players, this guy's one of those thieves. No one says anything. Not even Alasay is like, do you know you're trying to kid here? We are the Scions of the Seventh Dawn. We're like, yeah, go on, Wuklamart, we'll wait here. And then we have to click on a spot like 3 times to wait. And then we're like, I don't think she's coming back. And then we have to go on a little sojourn to go and rescue her. They dangle the carrot of the Yokoi and what's awaiting around the corner on a stick, and then have us go and do this other thing, which makes us, or made me, resent that moment a little bit, because it felt like we were about to get one thing, and then they throw a curveball and give us another thing.
And then, what it's supposed to do, I think, is make you dislike the villains, because they're behind it all. But, like, that wasn't necessarily the vibe, because what ended up happening, for me at least, is all the villainy that was going on, I absolutely was 100% convinced that Zaralja's like hench guy, the dude who was like his,
right?
I believe his name is Jaja Jafar. Jaja Jafar was like, don't worry, we're gonna get up to evil. And I was like, yeah. I was convinced this dude would betray Zaralja.
Yes, 100%.
I was like, Zaralja is such a nothing villain. He is like, I'm angry. And I'm like, why, bro? He's like, I don't know. I want to take over the world. I'm like, but why? Yeah. And his guy's like, you should take over the world. I was like, oh, that's the guy. He's in his head.
Yeah.
And when he kills that dude, I was like, no, I'm still pure hopium that this man is coming back.
We didn't see the body. So.
And he fell into the robo bits.
Exactly.
I'm like, that man is so much more interesting than every other villain we got. I was like, and he's gone. It broke my heart. But then we had, so then he goes through the portal. And then the man has 30 years of life that we don't see. And he comes back half robot like, I'm very evil now. And the entire time I was like, bro, you are such a punk. Oh my, someone let me get this guy. And Wuklamart's like, oh, brother, no. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess this is a thing between you two, but I have nothing at stake here. If you just let me kill this man. He is so stupid. He wasted 30 years of his life just getting bitter. And let me just like get this guy. And so we missed all of his growth as a villain, where he went from like, I'm angry, to now like, I will destroy everything. You're like, but like, why, bro? Like, you had a kid. We don't even know about that kid.
Yeah.
Like, so much happened off screen. And I read, I you know, like I said, I kind of like went into isolation. I read some people saying that a lot of Erenville and Kral's story happened off screen, but I was like, I don't think so. I was pretty geared in on what was going on with them.
Yeah.
Zaralja definitely happened off screen. Like, he had a whole arc that we never get to see, and he comes back, and we're supposed to be like, this guy's a threat. And the entire time I was like, this man has robots that like can be one shot. Like, this is I'm not even worried about any of this. And yeah, again, I guess it's all for Walk Lamont and her growth as a character. But for me, I was like, these assholes. I just, man, I gotta kill these guys. And really, it just became like, how do I get to the next scene where I get a little bit more lore? I'm like, all right, okay, bad guy, okay, villain, do your thing. You're no Jafar. He was a good guy. That guy was awesome.
I love the moment where Surreal Jar is like, when you unlock the power, make sure you give me my cut, and we do what we agreed upon. And I sat for hours, like, with chat, like, what could they be doing? What is their master plan?
I was like, this is awesome. I was like, this is gonna be so cool.
They want to go to Eorzea and, like, dominate, but why? What's the purpose? And then he just gets pushed off the edge. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. But yeah, I think on paper, the whole expansion, every zone in a microcosm, great, but then it's the pacing of all of it. It needed more time to breathe, I think. So many of the zones and so many of the characters just could have done with a little bit more breathing room. Some people overstayed their welcome. Others I didn't get enough of. I think a standout character is Wukivu. A phenomenal character, who every time he's on the screen, I'm happy. Buckle Jar Jar, despite, you know, glossing over the Valagarmanda thing, whenever he's on screen, I'm having a good time. Amazing character. And there's other characters who are less engaging, who I don't necessarily think we have to put them to one side and not interact with them, but they have so much more screen time given to them that I just think, well, how about we redistribute that and give a bit more to Kryle, a bit more to Erenville? Because Erenville was supposed to be our guide. He was supposed to be the guy who'd been out in the wilds and like had been around Tural and would guide us along with Wuklamut and show us the world of Tural. And he so very rarely gets that opportunity because we're too busy talking to everyone else, and no one really gets an opportunity to stick around for long enough to make much of an impact on us. I had to go back and watch my playthrough to remind myself of the little bits that had happened in Fantasy Texas, because a lot of the character names and a lot of the minutiae of that I wasn't thinking about. I was just, you know, in another world completely. And part of me wonders if there were rewrites done at some point, because we have the whole plot to do with, like, fantasy oil, right, being dug up, and we need to go and check in with the natives, and then that never goes anywhere. It's
that entire section to me felt like waiting. Like, we're waiting for something to happen.
And they try and keep us going with the trolley.
Yeah, we did the story, and then we're waiting for something to happen. Yeah. And then it finally happens, and now we get to go, like, be a part. But yeah, it felt like, well, we need to have a zone between here and the end. So what is that zone going to be? Like, well, we got, like, let's go to like Dinosaur Texas for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we'll hang out and we'll learn a little bit more about Erenville's mom and their relationship. But really, it's just a zone designed to set up things that will eventually happen.
Yes.
Like, it really is kind of a pointless zone. And especially considering you just came from 3 zones that were very specifically geared towards one part of the story. Yeah. This one feels kind of like, yep. I mean, like, even the way it operates, you're telling me that that giant bridge, they constantly ship stuff back and forth, even though the doors are always closed. Like, little things like that. I was like, how does this work? I don't know.
I feel like that zone in particular would have been such a great opportunity for them to have fleshed out Kona just a little bit more. Like, bring him over, show him in the role of Dawn Servant, you know, trying to bridge that gap between, hey, we need this resource. What can I do to help you with that? And we never get that. Like, Kona's off with Urianger and Thancred most of the expansion. We occasionally get little moments with them, and some of my favorite moments in the first half of the expansion are when they're around the campfire, like having those intimate chats with one another. And I feel like that's where 14 really shines, is when we have those very powerful character moments. And then a lot of that is sort of thrown out the window later on. Yeah. And I don't understand why. Like, even at the ceremony, we don't see Thancred and Urianger. And that's a moment where I feel like them showing up and being
should have been there. Yeah, exactly.
Should have been there, 100%. Go on.
I feel like the inclusion of all the Scions was weird.
Yes.
I understand why they chose to have them present, because it gives us some of the old and we get some of the new. But in reality, it should have just been Kryl comes with Erenville and us to go hang out with Wucklamont, because Kryl is a stake in what's going on.
Yep.
And all the other characters, their reasonings, like the twins, they're like, well, we want to go there because we're trying to help Garlemald, and this is going to help them in some way. And I'm like, okay, sure. And then the dads, they show up because they're like, well, we got asked to do this other thing. Meanwhile, every other character does not come.
Yeah.
So it's like they don't show up until the end, which is really where they all should have showed up. There should have been like, yo, we're under attack. If it was meant to be a threat, it's like, hey, I can't handle this myself because it's a full-ass army of a bunch of people. I need you guys here. Plus, you know what's going on with sort of like the voidy things and all the different rift stuff. So I need the team. And that could have been the second half of the game, is like, hey, get the Scions over here because we haven't had them yet. And then we could have had time to spend the first half of the game, not just with Wucklamont, but like an Erenville storyline and a Kryl storyline. So we had 3 storylines instead of, we have the twins. Like, I love the twins. I love the dads. I love all the Scions, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense. This might be the one time that I wish they went a little more World of Warcraft, which is like, WoW will start an expansion with entirely new characters and ditch all the old characters. And you're like, well, why wouldn't the old characters be here? This would be the one time where I'm like, no, we should have ditched all the old characters. Let them do, like, they're clearly doing things. The Scions have disbanded. We're all doing stuff. Let them do stuff, and then bring them at the end like, yo, actually, we're caught up in some more. Like, I went on vacation, guys. Turns out I screwed up. And then we can give them their moment where they beat all the robots, and we get that whole... The second half could have played the exact same way, really.
Yeah, no, definitely.
We just missed out on some, like, really in-depth character study stuff that could have been done. That was definitely done in the previous expansions that we just didn't get this time because there were so many moving parts that I think they were just trying to get, hey, this is the new world, this is everything going on, plus here's the new characters, plus here's the storyline, plus here's a new weird twist, plus here's a new MacGuffin, plus, and it's just like, yo, that's a lot. But I think, again, much like A Realm Reborn, where they threw a lot at us, they'll pick and choose from the lot they threw and pick a story. So I mean, I get it. I'm not, upset over it. It's just like, anyone who does not like Dawntrail, you will not get an argument from me. Like, if it's not your thing, I get it. I enjoyed it. I had fun. But if it's like, no, I hated that. Like, yeah, all right. I mean, I didn't very much like A Realm Reborn until the very end. And it's fine. Like, we're all good. It's just one of those things that it's very clearly designed by the dev team to start something. And the start's always going to be rough. I will simply say, we talked about Star Trek earlier. I'm going to talk about it again. Anyone who has ever seen Star Trek knows the first season of every Star Trek series sucks the butts. It is every single one. Deep Space Nine, Next Generation, Voyager, all of them. Not
I will look at the chat to confirm that. First season of TNG, woof. Is TNG not great the first season?
No, it's like, again, it's them trying to find themselves, right? Deep Space Nine is one of my favorite examples. The first season of Deep Space Nine is terrible. And then Captain Sisko comes back, head shaved, totally different like vibe. And he's like, you tried to make me one thing season 1, season 2, I'm a badass. And you're like, yes, let's go. And suddenly it's amazing. Here's what I'll say. Yeah, chat's right. Strange New World season 1 was amazing. But I'm talking about the OG, okay? The original, like, it takes time, I think, for people to get what it is.
Yeah.
And, this is one of those vibes, like, for everyone who's saying Star Trek Strange New Worlds, it was great first season, they released 2 other Star Trek shows before they got to that. Picard and Discovery, people did not like those at all. And so they had like, okay, we did all these things and people did not like those. Let's do this. And then Strange New Worlds comes out and it's like, yeah, it's the best one. So I feel like they figured out what was going on and what people wanted. And so I think that's what's happening here is they just threw a bunch of stuff and said,
definitely.
Surely something here will be what we go with. and plus we're gonna give them new locations and new stuff. So
yeah.
I'm not too stressed. I
And
have a feeling
to
it'll be
me,
fine.
I think the inclusion of the Scions was a safety net. Of we're not entirely
Absolutely.
sure if this is going to go the right way, so just in case, we're going to give them a little taste of what's come before. But here's the thing. Heaven's Ward did what I wanted Dawntrail to do. Leave the Scions behind. I don't want them to all be mysteriously maybe dead, like we had in The Realm Reborn, but give them, time to simmer in the background while I go on an adventure with Estinian and Ysael, and build out Kryl and Erenville in the same way, where I get to have these moments with these characters, and then throw Wuklamad in. And let me experience these characters and build them anew without having to worry about the baggage of what came before. And then imagine if when the bubble appears in Charloni, we get out the Zem's Crystal and we summon the Scions, and Y'shtola's like, I was in the middle of reading a book. What have you called me here for? And then we're like, the bubble, help quickly.
There's a whole thing.
Yeah, we need help. And they're like, oh, go on then, because it's you. We'll help out. Why not? And then they're part of the story at that point. Like, let us call them to our aid in such a fashion without the need for them to be in the background. Because I felt almost offended that we walk in and see Estinian battling Galul Jar Jar, and then he's like, that's a good fighter. Goodbye. And it's like, no! You're my friend. I love you, and you're leaving me. And then we eventually run into him again in Charloni.
Honestly, that's the one thing they should have kept. I'm fine with them removing all the Scions. Estinian going on his own personal adventure is the most Estinian thing that that is my favorite part of this expansion. Is this man just I came here because I want to fight this guy, and that's really it. And you're like, Estinian. I would love it if they gave us Kryl, Erenville, and Wuklamad. They expanded on Bakul Jaja's story. They gave us an actual Zaralja as a villain arc.
Yes. Yep.
And that's all it was. That's the focus. And then we had the dad, and we got to learn about the two heads. And that's fine. If that was it, that would have been so tight and focused. And then they could have thrown in, and as a reminder, the Scions are there, still doing their things. Estinian's just constantly around, and we just keep running into him. He could be if they were gonna be goofy, they should have done the same thing they did with Alpha and Omega.
I was about to say the same thing.
They just randomly put Estinian in different locations as you play, and it just keeps popping up for the entire expansion.
You know the taco hut near where the crafting area is? I'd love if he were just in a queue and you chat with him and he's like, I've got 10,000 gil for a taco here. And we're like, okay, buddy. And then occasionally he'll pop up elsewhere. I'd have loved that. I absolutely would have loved that because it's so fitting for the character. Even when we, get the breadcrumb at the end of Endwalker when he's like, I've not been west. I'll go west. It's just of course you are. Of course you are.
Estinian is the vibes I wish I had. I constantly am just I love traveling, and I don't even care if anyone's with me. I will go places just to go. And I love that vibe about him, and the idea that he just went, not for any reason, he just went to go, I think is very funny. And to have him just show up at different locations and be like, I came to check. If you just randomly stumble upon rubble and he's like, that's my bad. I blew that up. That guy was being a dick. And there's so many ways to have him just exist. And he doesn't have to be a main part of the story. He's just there. I think it'd be hilarious. It would add the same vibe as Corn Servant, where when Corn Servant shows up, you're like, I don't know why you're here, but I love you, Corn Servant. Same thing, where it's just give us those little things, and that could be a reminder of what's going on. And then in the patch content, the Scions are now with us, and now we can catch up with them and do some Scion-y things.
Yes, 100%.
And I feel like that's 100% what it should have been. But I don't know if they were too afraid to leave the Scions out. Or I don't know what the vibe is, but they did nothing. I love Graha. I love the twins. They offered no help whatsoever.
Well, in defense of Graha, he does swallow that ice cream whole to break the tension with Kryl and her parents.
True, but that is the second half of the game. So he could have just come there the second half of the game.
True.
He didn't have to he didn't have to be there for the whole Kryl stuff. He didn't need to deep throw that ice cream. He didn't have to do
Jesse.
that.
It was Azem's plan all along. It was we need Graha here. We need the ice cream. Yeah. That needed to happen.
Oh, what the hell is that? No, I feel like that could have just when the bubble appears, we could have summoned all them, or we could have been like, we need you, bing bong.
That would have been such a great moment to have been like, this seems like a good enough moment to call my friends in and to have them, make little, snide comments like, I was doing this or I was doing that, but I see you need me. Go on and we'll help you out. I'd have loved that. And again, as you said, gives them more breathing room for the other characters at the first half of the game, which is where I feel like that aspect was a little bit lacking, that very first half, because they were cramming so much in there. Just remove a few bits here and there, loosen up a bit. One of the biggest, carrots on a stick they dangle in front of us is Zaraljar's origin. He is this child of a miracle. He's basically Lizard Jesus, where we don't know where he came from, but he's divine purpose, and he's here to save us all.
His son's the exact same way, crazy.
Yeah, right, yeah. But we never have that elaborated upon. Never is that ever dabbled in. And then not only do they not tell us, they double down by saying he also has a son. We don't know how he came about either. And it's like, what? Yeah. Why? I'm worrying about this plot thread, and now you've given me a duplicate plot thread. What's happening? Hopefully we get to know a bit more.
And it's weird because they gave us Sphene as a villain.
Yep.
But also Zaralja as a villain, but also Bakul Jaja as a villain, and none of them were given enough time to be a villain.
Yeah.
Like Zaralja gets his image is recouped within minutes.
Yeah.
That man saves a few lives, and we're like, I love this guy now. It's like, bro, that man almost killed a lot of people. He kidnapped your friend. Like, he's not a good guy. But suddenly we're like, you know what? You're helping the town. Earn it back. What? And even in the moment I felt it, I was like, he's working on it. You know what? He's working on it. I love this guy. He's doing his thing. Meanwhile, you have Zaralja who's just like, I am evil because the script says I'm evil. And the entire time I was like I said earlier, it's definitely his guy is the bad one. And he's like making him do this stuff because it doesn't make a lot of sense why he's like so keen on this. It's very clear this other dude, they never expand on that. And he just becomes a villain. And then Sphene is like, I'm good. No, I'm good. And obviously I know what they're going for because the entire time she kept asking, do you want to be part of Alexandria? I would love it if you guys stayed here. And literally it was just the AI program and be like, I can keep you alive if you become one of my people because I'm designed to protect Alexandrians, right? So I don't want to kill you, Wuklamat, but the only way I can not kill you is if you become Alexandrian. And we're like, no, you goofball, I've got to go lead a kingdom. And then she's like, fine, I'm going to murder you. And it's like, okay, so we have like a cold-blooded AI program, and it's pretty basic on its like villainy level, where it's like, I'm just doing what I'm told to do. I love my people. What's wrong with me? And even that's not like, okay, well, like we got a bunch of like, again, Vario Realm Reborn baddies. We have like villains that are on the level of like, yeah, it's me, Nero. Why am I evil? Because Sid's a dick is why.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm Gaius. Why do you fight? I don't know, dude. It's because you're being a dick. Yeah, well I'll burn this. I didn't want to burn it that bad, though. Like, I didn't want to do that, right? You have all these villains who are kind of like, all right, villains. And yeah, it clearly is the start of something, but it was a lot of like plates in the air and none of them being spun. It was like, just get the plates up.
A great analogy. Yeah, fantastic. I fully agree with you there. Because on paper, each of these individual characters, if they were given enough time to breathe and like grow and actually have on-screen development, I'd have loved. Sure. Every beat of the story, if you look at it on paper, fantastic. But then it's just the juggling of it all, or the spinning of the non-existent plates, which I think is where they fumbled a little bit in the intro. I think the latter half, like the back end of the expansion, is great. There's definitely moments where I wish, again, pacing was a little bit tweaked. Like we get introduced to Otis in the wreckage of Alexandria, and I thought he's going to take us on a tour and tell us about what was once here and what this city once looked like. We meet him, we have the fireside chat, we're back in Solution 9, and he's dead. Right. And I had
people were like, "Oh, that's so sad." I was like, I barely knew that man.
I was sad at the possibility that we don't get to know more about him because I enjoyed him so much that I didn't like sob. I was like, "That's shit." Like I wanted more of him because we get introduced to a character who's such a breath of fresh air relative to everyone else we've met up until that point. Unique model as well, which normally denotes importance. Only for him to then perish. will he come back? Because we had 1% left on the bar, which I paid attention to. There's 1% left on his energy bar when he died. So
I was like, he's not dead. He's not dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, Sven's going to put him in the program. But then he was already there. So like, I will say I saw in chat the idea that Zaralja is trying to like outdo his dad. And he is trying to be better than his father, which is fine. I mean, that's definitely what they were trying to do. But it's the idea that doesn't make him a villain. You know what I mean? Like, he went from that's who he was in the first half of the game to 30 years of his life goes by, which we do not see. And he comes back and he's like, I will burn the world to the ground. And you're like, okay, but why? Like, before you wanted to control everything because you wanted to unite the world because your dad united a continent and you wanted to like outdo your father. Great, fine. But like, you were still willing to help us when we needed help to defeat monsters and stuff, right? Yeah. Like, you weren't a bad guy. You were just a dude who like had a different philosophy that we definitely didn't agree with. And then you come back and you're like, I will kill everyone in Tyrol because screw you. And it's like, I would love to have seen that development from a character who's like, I am this, and now I'm this. Instead, we got I am this, vanished, came back worse. And it's like, I don't think that's good.
His existence, defying, nature and everything, really is quite an interesting plot hook. The idea that he shouldn't exist. We don't really know where he came from. Does he have a mother? How is he sired? We don't know.
He's a miracle child. Like, he is
exactly.
The vibe I picked up on him immediately as I was like, he has, and this is when I first met him. I was like, he has the exact same vibe as a kid who in like elementary school was told he's a prodigy, and then by the time he's 30 is like washed up and hates the world, and he feels like, because when he was young everyone was like, you're gonna be something amazing, and then he never really like had to apply himself or become good at anything because he was always good at something. And then later in life it just didn't click and work. And that's the vibe I got with him, and that's fine. That's definitely what the character was. He had, gifted child syndrome. He had that idea of like, I'm just better than everyone. But again, having him disappear and then live 30 years of a life, there's so much there's so much weight there that we do not experience. And I feel like that's a huge misnote that it makes me feel like they could have done, again, they could have just killed him and given us, like, because he helped us defeat Valgamonda. Like, and like, he helps, we literally he should have died. And it should have been his stooge who was like, I'm the villain because my plans were always evil. I will settle for an always evil guy over anyone who, like, grows into evil any day. Yeah. That's fine. He's like, I've been evil before the start of this game. Don't worry about it.
I think what I'd have loved to have seen is have Zaralja be more relatable and more friendly to begin with. And we get to see him as the brother he was to Wuklamut and Kona. Because to me, it always struck as a bit odd that they weren't like, he's always been mega evil. But for him to just immediately be this one, no, I'm evil, was a bit odd. But I was willing to roll with it.
Honestly, I think you're absolutely correct. The way it should have been is the siblings are all in like friendly rivalry, but as we go around and as we do things, two things happen. One, Kona as a character goes from being cold to one that realizes his sister's attitudes on how to do this are correct. And that is pretty much his arc as it is, right? And then Zaralja should have been the character who he is, more like violent about it, but that's because he is his dad's son and he is like this chosen child. And so for him, all the different quests that they were going on should have been super easy. Like, he should, every time we get back, he's the first one there. He's already done it. And he's like, come on, guys, keep up. And he's like, just joshing us a little bit, giving us a little ribbing. But he's a good guy. He helps us do stuff. And I think the thing is, at the end, when we have to fight the like vision of our father, that's when he gets messed up, because like his whole thing is, I'm trying to be better than my dad, and I think I'm better than my dad, but my dad just beat me again. And it can be one of those, he always beats me. And I've been trying my entire life, and everyone tells me I'm special, but I keep losing my dad. I should be better than my dad. And so like his collapse is one of those like narcissistic collapse things where he just realizes how badly he's screwed, and he gets booted out of the competition. A competition he was definitely going to win without cheating, without anything. He was just going to do it. he loses, and now that's when he's like, I will do anything to win, and he breaks down, and then we can have this character collapse, and that's why when he vanishes for 30 years, when he comes back, he can be a piece of shit because we watched the start of it happen, and now we understand, oh, he had no one there around him to tell him, like, you should, like, this is the wrong way, dude. You are absolutely losing it. In fact, all he had was people that enabled him because they made him king, and now he rules over these people. Like, you know, we got a version of that, but we didn't get a version that was as complete as it should have been. We got a version that was like, look, we got a lot of story to tell, so we're just going to rush through this. And I feel like that, again, that's the biggest thing, is there was a lot going on here.
Yeah. Like, I think you saying the culmination when he fights his dad being the collapse point, great. And then to see maybe Wuklamart step in and do it makes him reevaluate, was I not destined to be the next ruler? And for him to then begin questioning his own reality, because he's always seen himself as the destined child, the prodigy, the child that never should have existed. And then maybe that's when Surreal Jar says, I have done some reading, and I may know of something we can do to give you what is rightfully yours. And then watch them two go on their mission together. And I'll say this for yourself and for chat as well. Overall, I enjoyed the expansion. Like, don't think this is being overtly negative for the sake of being overtly negative. It's more so an analysis of what maybe they could have landed better. Because overall, I think we all want Final Fantasy XIV to succeed. We want it to be absolutely fantastic. We've tasted what it's like to have this game be at its absolute zenith. And we want more of that. And I am totally confident in the developers, the writers, that the steps they take from here on out are going to be for the best interest of the game, the players, the story, 100%. They've given us that faith over the past 10 years. And I think a lot of people are throwing the baby out with the bathwater and said, you've kind of dropped the ball a bit, and I don't trust you anymore. Whereas I see it as like a bit of a slight fumble on the first step on a new adventure. Just very slight fumble. It's still a great step, but could have been better executed. And I think, and you know, this is why I want to invite you on, Jesse, is to begin looking to the future. And like, the future is bright, you know. We've discussed a plethora of theories and little dangling threads that exist, and we are so excited to see where they lead, where they go, what the future holds. And that is the joy of this game, is being able to have these theories. Because the theories you've come up with, like the Asim Vengers, I fully buy into that. Whether or not it happens, what a great theory. I love it.
I want it so bad. It'd be so over the top. I just want, like, if we have Void, like, we need another scene similar to when fighting Emmett, where it's like the portal. Like, I want my end game moment where, like, we get it, like, on your left, and, like, dude's portal. Like, I want Loporrits popping out of there. I want, like, everyone. I want every single person we've ever met to just show up and be like, what do you need, dude? It's like, let's go kick some ass. I want an over-the-top moment. I know we'll get one. I have no doubt we'll get one. It's just, you know, it's fun theory crafting stuff. And I feel like there's a lot to work with. One of the things that during the media tour, I remember Yoshida said, like, hey, we are swinging for fences, and there may be some things that you like or don't like. We're excited to see what you think at the end. So I feel like 100% they were like, yeah, all right, this will be a whole thing we're going to do here. And yeah, I guess the big question, again, if people who are watching or listening or whatever you're doing right now, we are armchair quarterbacking the shit out of this. Yeah. We were not there. We don't know the process it took to make this. We don't know what they left on the like floor. We don't know like what was going on or what their actual goal was here. The goal could have literally been, we're over here thinking like, all right, here's the story, and they do this and this. Their goal could have been create as many potential future story arcs as possible in one thing and get them out. Yeah. Like, we don't know. And maybe that's the genius of it. Again, A Realm Reborn, not one of my favorite things in the world. However, I insist to everyone you must play it.
Oh, 100%.
Because the things that happen later, that happen later based on A Realm Reborn are so necessary that it's insane to skip it.
100%.
And I feel like that's the same thing here, where it feels like, look, you may not love this, but I promise you that the dev team is like, all right, here's the things that we're going to take based off of this expansion. And in X number of expansions, you're going to be like, oh shit, that's amazing. I promise you. People are gonna be like, oh, they did the, and then remember in Dawntrail, like, oh my god, it will happen.
Definitely.
It's going to happen.
Well, the one thing that I'll say this before we begin wrapping up is when the Azem symbol appears on the hourglass and it enters Sphene, Queen Eternal's body, there's like some electrical feedback and some stuff which happens there. Do you think anything may have happened to Sphene in that moment, and that maybe brings us back to the crown in some way? Because I feel like we have somehow, in some way, left our mark upon that Resonator, upon Sphene, with our interaction with the relic. But I don't know how that's going to come about.
Yeah, 100%. The end of the expansion is the implication that it is, we spent X number of hours dealing with Waklamot's story. Now we're going back to our story. And I think that's hammered home by the fact that Sphene doesn't say like, oh, damn, Waklamot, that's pretty crazy. Sorry we had to fight. Literally instead just says something to us as a character. Yeah. We don't know what it is. And again, like we said, we'll probably find out much later and they'll just make it up. But that is very clearly an indication that whatever happens during that fight, that moment is the one that matters, right? The conversation between the two of us that had no VO or any dialogue boxes is the answer to probably your question and many of my questions.
Yes.
Because, if anything did happen, if there was some sort of, I don't know, thing going on, it would have been revealed in that moment. So I would assume that's the key to all this, is that like one interaction.
Yeah. My guess is that will come up. My hope is that will come up in the patch quests. We've had the little breadcrumb of a Resonator. We've had the breadcrumb, as you said, of the conversation, which we couldn't listen to. Preservation. There's so many little things that we need to wrap up. I think that are Dawntrail centric before we begin looking at what's next. One more thing I'll mention, then we'll wrap up.
Sure.
The idea that the alliance between Taral and Thavner happens off screen.
Right.
I'm happy of them hand-waving that, but I feel like that's another thread that we will then follow through into maybe the 0.4, 0.5 patch. And that's what makes me lean Meridian. I'll be honest. The idea that we go back there, we have a chat with Vritra, check in on Ajdai, see how she's getting on, and then maybe Tiamat appears and says, guys, I need some help down south. You want to come with me? And then that leads us into what I hope, I really would love, I'd yearn for an arc in the game to be based on Norse mythology. I know technically Meridian is where Australia should be, and it'd be a bit weird to maybe have Norse mythology play a part down there, but given the naming conventions of the dragons, given the existence supposedly of a world tree, that's what I'm really hoping to see. And I'd love to know what you are hoping we're going to see in these patches before we wrap up.
I am curious if we're going to do a little Supermaning. By the way, I'm totally convinced. Look, I love Kryl, but Kryl is now Cry-L for me. Pure Superman. That child came from another world. It was delivered to, it's Cry-L. And I wonder if in the cup, because, we have that crystal, which is pretty much just white orisite.
Yeah.
Could that be some kind of like, can we have a moment where we go and like put it in a thing and it's like, Cry-L, my child. Like, I don't know. I want a thing. It could be just like, it's me, the former you from many, many years ago, the ancient. Just want to say, sup, future me. Turns out I knew all this was going to happen. Like, that could be a thing. That could be like we put it in there and we get like our own Superman moment. I don't know. I would assume that based on what happened at the end of the expansion, whatever preservation is has to be the 1, 2, and 3. It has to be. There's literally no other threads that are as answerable immediately. Right? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like I was waiting the entire time for a post-credit scene. I was like waiting, like, all right. I was hoping my dude would crawl out of that hole like they thought they knocked me off, but I'm like, we got nothing.
What we got was the relic being on the end table, like this you know, basically nuclear bomb of power, just on the end table. That's what we got.
Which is definitely going to be kind of the starting point. Is like trying to figure out what the relic is, probably. But with that said, I don't know if that means the relic is going to be completely answered by point 3, or if we're going to go on a longer adventure. Like, they could do either, right? This could be one of those things where there's been times where I've thought, oh yeah, this is going to be a huge deal. And then one patch later, it was resolved. And I was like, oh, all right, well, cool. So yeah, I have no clue. I don't know what's going to happen. I feel the same way I felt before Dawntrail started, where I was like, I don't know what they're going to do. And honestly, I'm just along for the ride, and we'll see what happens. But you can't tease so clearly a connection to everything going on with our character that, yeah, okay, we're new here. We don't know what's going on. This is all a different world to us, but clearly in some way deep down we're connected. You can't tease that and not deliver. You just can't do it. And they have teased it. Like, there's so many things going on here that say an ancient version of us had a hand in all the things happening. Yeah. And it may not be a Jesse goes around and explores like Indiana Jones, but you can't tease the idea that we're involved and not deliver on like a big reveal, right? Like 100%. We need something.
I think Azem will be what the Scions were in the first 10-year saga. Following in Azem's footsteps will be a core part of what we do. Will it ultimately be the finale of what we're going to do? We'll have to wait and see. But I feel like what Azem did and the foresight they had will be the core heartbeat of what we're doing moving forwards. And I am so ready for that.
I think it could easily be something along the lines like, boy, I can't believe this just came into my head. I was like, it could also just be a Borderlands thing where we think we're going to go like discover the big secret, and then it turns out like, no, dude, I locked this thing away for a reason. Like, there's plenty of ways to do this. And I think that having the MacGuffin that we have now lead us on an adventure is very fun, and I would love it if it because we have got so many things from previous expansions were brought up in this. All the things that happened to Graha are literally what Sfiend's doing. Like, Graha's like, yeah, take some memories and some of it is my spirit, and we'll do this whole thing. Same vibe with, so they're like, hey, you played the last couple years. And again, they keep saying, we are not going to make a new starting point for new players. So it's very clear in their mind that everything that happened before must have a reason.
Yes.
And must affect things in the future, even if it's minimally. And I think that if that's the case, then we should keep doing that. And they're setting up stuff for things to come. So I'm waiting for them to make it all work. Again, this could be me sitting there playing like, old World of Warcraft and being excited as hell. Like, guys, this is going to be awesome. I can't wait to see what they do with Legion. Like, finally, it's all coming together. And they just end the Legion story. I was like, we just killed the burning, and it was just done. And they're like, all right, next thing. I thought for sure it was going to be like, this is a much longer story. No, not at all. And I think that's the same case here where I'm hoping we get a huge story, but they could be like, no, it's one expansion's worth of stuff. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and see. Because, my goodness, I mean, we've got 2 months, haven't we, until, I believe, the very first patch. Which, I mean, I had the revelation when I began the Raid series questline that it would be about 2 years until that concludes. This is my first time being properly caught up, and that was a tough pill to swallow. Because I'm theorizing, who could the announcer be? Who's the president of the it doesn't matter. I'll find out in like 2027, maybe, if I'm lucky. So, yeah. You've given me a lot to think about, that's for sure, and I'm sure you've given chat a lot of stuff to think about too. I could sit here.
The best part is I promise you, somehow we'll be wrong.
Oh, of course, 100%, 100%.
That's why I hedge my bets. One of my favorite things is at the beginning of Endwalker, I was like doing predictions, and I'll always just be like, and it's funny if I was like, all right, I played enough Final Fantasy to know here's what's gonna happen. Either at the end, every character's dead, or everyone's just fine and we all like move on. And I was very surprised I got both. I was like, yeah, all right.
Yeah,
so I feel like I was like, yeah, okay.
That's a win. I'll take that.
Yeah, and I think that's the case here where we can throw stuff, and I guarantee someone will come back here and be like, oh, they were right about this. But if you watch the full thing, don't do that. You're probably wrong about everything else.
Just a bit about the Asim Vengers, guys. Clip that bit and, seal that in the vault, because that's definitely going to happen.
It's weird they called them exactly that.
It is odd, isn't it? They must have had inspiration from somewhere. Definitely couldn't have been here right now.
Yeah, weird.
Hey, Jesse, thank you for coming on. I really do appreciate it. I could sit here for another 2, 3, 4, 5 hours and just chat lore, because this is the best part of the game for me, and all of these little nuggets which they leave, and there's so many things that I'm theorizing about that, again, I'd love to bounce off of you, but we don't have all of the time in the world. Thank you, chat, for giving a round of applause to the lovely Jesse. Jesse, where can people find you, just in case they're not already watching you elsewhere?
Sure. Over on the YouTubes, youtube.com/Jesse Cox. Hopefully Monday I'll have this video done and uploaded.
Cannot wait. For people who don't know, Jesse's working on a video for his thoughts and feelings about all things Dawntrail.
Honestly, if you're watching this, you've probably already seen most of my thoughts already. They will not change. And then I stream over on twitch.tv/Jesse Cox. I'm everywhere. It's just Jesse Cox everywhere, except on the TikToks, because I got to there late and really
oh no.
But it's Jesse Cox TikToks, so enjoy that.
Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, and so that's a whole thing. But yeah, you can just find me everywhere, or simply jessecox.com. It's a link to everything. It's just a page with links.
Genius. Look at that marketing. Look at that marketing. You've been in the game for a long time, haven't you?
Some say too long. Some might say too long. Feel like I should have made $1 million and retired by now, but somehow that hasn't happened. What's going on?
It will happen.
Is this a conspiracy?
It will happen.
Where's my billions? Shouldn't I be a billionaire by now? I see all these YouTubers in their mansions. What's going on?
Where's my mansion?
Where's my mansion?
It'll come. We'll see to it. Jesse, you're a star. Thank you for joining me. And one day in the distant future, we'll chat again and reminisce on this day, and we'll be celebrating the fact that
we were.
Exactly. Yeah. But I will catch up with you soon.
Yeah. Just before I go, I just want to say to everyone watching, if we do get an Asim Avengers storyline, we're going, I will be the most intolerable asshole who ever lived. I will be like, I was right. I can see the future. I will be unbearable. I'm just letting you know now. I will be the worst.
I fully expect
I'm proven right. Yeah.
Similar if we get anything Meridian next expansion. That's mine. I'm going small picture. You've gone big picture.
You know
You've gone 10-year journey. I've gone maybe in the next couple of years. So different strokes, but I'll take it. Asim Vengers, guys, take that and run with it.
Asim Vengers, Azemble. Come on, it's right there.
Oh, no.
Azemble. It's right there.
Oh dear. On your left, it's Azem.
Yeah,
it's all Azem.
Warriors of Light, Azemble. That shit. That is awesome. Azemble just. It's right there. We can do this.
Quickly, go and make a design, put it on a t-shirt, watch it sell. That's all I'm gonna say. The people are waiting, Jesse.
Oh man, the problem is the more I talk about it, the more I'm afraid that the dev team will not do it, because they'll be like, well, we can't do it because he already said that, and we don't want to we don't want him to sue us later for stealing his idea. Exactly. I got to stop talking about it.
All right.
They have to think it's their own. I have to incept it. I have to sneak up to Yoshida while he's sleeping,
assemble.
I'm like, look away. Yeah.
Perfect. Oh man. Azemgers or
Azemble. Azemgers, Azemble. That sucks so bad. I have ruined the game. If that happens, send me your angry letters. I will deserve them.
Oh my god. Well, Jesse, it's been a pleasure. I'll take that with me and ruminate on it for a while. Azemble.
Please do.
Azemble. Yeah. Thank you, chat, for cheering on the podcast today. Jesse, you're a star. Chat, you're a star. And yeah, we'll leave it there for now before we go on a massive tirade about who knows what else. So, thank you, chat, for hanging out. Thank you, Jesse. And I'll catch you all next time.